Alrighty, it's that time again. And today in Retired in Korea, RIK. That's what we're calling it, Retired in Korea. We're going to talk about speech ban, or the banning of speech, propaganda leaflets, Chinese tourists here in Korea, and revenge parking. So that's going to be the topics of discussion, at least the scheduled topics of discussion right now. So anyway, we are here live in Korea, and what we're ended up doing is we're going to be talking about this stuff over here. Speech ban, propaganda leaflets, Chinese tourists here in Korea, because there's a big uproar about that, and revenge parking. This is apparently a new thing that is popping in here to Korea. And it just makes you scratch your head and wonder why. Of course, a lot of these things do. So we're going to jump right into this. For those of you who don't know, I'm Steve, the retired hobby tech guy. I'm an American expat who is retired here in Korea. So that's why I have kind of an interest on what is going on here in Korea. And so I figured I'd share some stuff with you all and see what your thoughts are on some of these things, and we get into some pretty cool discussions. So feel free to leave some comments. I can read your comments on there, and so if you got questions, concerns, ideas, whatever, or just want to say hi, put it in the comments section. So with that, we're going to jump right into the speech ban. Now, as an American, I believe in the Constitution and the rights of free speech, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And most countries have freedom of speech, but some of them are not as defined as they are in the United States. So, with that being said, there's kind of the idea that, okay, well, you have freedom of speech to say whatever you want. But if you go into a theater and you yell fire or bomb, or, go to the airport and say, I've got a gun or whatever, you're free to do that. But is it, are you going to cause panic? Are you going to cause danger? People panic, crowds running and getting trampled. That is probably not a good thing. So with the freedom of speech comes also responsibility, because anytime you have a freedom, you have to have responsibility and accountability for that. So here in Korea, people do have the freedom of speech. They have the freedom to protest and things like that. But things are changing. And so let's jump into that. Freedom of speech in Korea is changing just a little bit. So let's see if we can get over here. Boom, Lee. About zero tolerance on hate speech, calls disinformation criminal. And there he is. President Lee Jae-myung presides over a cabinet meeting on the presidential office, and there he is with his dyed hair and everything. That seems to be a thing. A lot of politicians dye their hair over here, and so yeah, a lot of older people do as well. I don't, at least not yet. Anyway, I just suck on my lattes. Anyway, Lee he vowed to enforce zero tolerance policy on hate speech and disinformation, describing them as crimes that clearly go beyond the limits of free expression. He also directed his cabinet to introduce swift measures to strengthen penalties and discipline, including the automatic dismissal of civil servants who use discriminatory language. Really? Chairing a cabinet meeting at the presidential office, he said that hate speech and false information on social media are eroding social trust and undermining democracy. It is the scourge. TikTok is the evil, and YouTube and all of those things, the Facebook, and it's eroding and undermining democracy because we have the freedom of speech to say what we want. We can no longer overlook hate or disinformation disguised as opinion. That's a very, very interesting way of putting it. Disguised as opinion. He said, acts that distort facts or violate human dignity are crimes that must be punished as such. Let's go out on a limb here. Let's talk about this. We can no longer hate or disinformation disguised as opinion. Um, what is the metric or the standards that you have to differentiate between opinion or hate and disinformation that is disguised as opinion? That is a huge chasm. That is a huge chasm, and some might say it's a very fine line. It's on the razor's edge of, good and bad, and you still have the freedom of speech or you don't. Excuse me. Which brings into question, who is the arbitrator of this freedom of speech or opinions? Who is the one that is saying these are good opinions and these are bad opinions? Or are these opinions differentiated because of the political leader who is in office or the party that is in charge and controlling the country or organization or whatever it is? That could be kind of problematic, because we've seen a lot of time in history where speech has been weaponized against other people and it ended disastrously. So, that's why there's the importance of freedom of speech. But here it's just kind of problematic, because it's like, how do you disguise it as from, hate and disinformation and disguise it as opinion? Can't people just give opinions anymore without having to worry if somebody is offended and saying, oh, that's hate speech or that's disinformation? Hell, if it's disinformation, the majority of the news, reports that haven't got all the information are considered disinformation. So what is that going to look like? I mean, you can see the slippery slope of where we're going down, and it's just like, acts that distort facts or violate human dignity are crimes and must be punished as such. Well, who is the one that is saying this is violating human dignity? What are these human dignities that we're talking about? I mean, this just seems like an arbitrary or a very generalized point of view of saying, hey, anything that distorts facts. Well, if you know anything about a story, you have one side, you have the other side, and then somewhere in the middle is the true story, and then, which brings up the idea of truth. Is truth, what is truth? And is it malleable? Is it based on situational ethics? Is it my truth versus your truth? Is it the whatever political party that is in office, and if that is a different truth than what the people have, that they don't like certain people because they belong to a different political group or religious organization or whatever it is ad nauseum, who, facts, hate, disinformation, opinions. I mean, these things are just, it is really, really rough. Lee instructed ministers to devise legislation and enforcement steps without delay and asked police authorities to play a leading role in stopping the spread of false content. He said that the governments must draw a clear boundary between legitimate speech and incitement that endangers the public. So, yeah, and that's the thing that we talked about a little bit. If you go into an airport and you say, I have a bomb or I have a gun, and people panic, and then, people get hurt in the stampede or whatever it is, we can understand that. Again, you have freedom of speech, but you have responsibilities, and just because you can say something doesn't mean you should. But those are very clear-cut and extreme examples of the misuse of free speech that can result in that can endanger the public. Whereas this, when it talks about and it says, we can't overlook hate or disinformation disguised as opinion. So, or what about the opinion, sections of newspapers and online blogs and so on and so forth? Are these, editorials? They're based on opinions or looking from different points of view that are considered opinions. And now who is the one that says, this opinion and this editorial is disinformation and thus considered hate, or we consider it as the people in charge as distorting the facts and violating some type of human dignity? should be crimes to be punished, that is a very slippery slope, because we've seen a lot of places through a lot of countries throughout time use that very same thing and misuse it to enslave people. You just have to look at some communist countries in a recent past, and they have said these exact same things. Don't speak against the dear leader, and don't, the only facts that matter are the facts that come out of his mouth or her mouth. You look at Stalin, you look at Lenin, you look at Pol Pot, you look at, Mao Zedong and stuff like that, and Mussolini, and of course you got to throw the big H in there, the Hitler guy. When those people have the stranglehold and can really control and make that and say, well, we don't like you because of your race, because of your sex, whatever it is, and blah blah blah, tons of other things. If we don't like you because you speak out, we have the means to punish you. And it's like, so this can be very, very problematic. I get that you want to minimize the boundaries and to minimize the danger to the public, like we in the example that I cited. But man, it is rough. It is rough. And Love Mose says the coup leaking from a lab in China was called misinformation and punishable if mentioned. Now it's considered the truth. So that's just how much credence I give to this concept of misinformation. Exactly. And how many times have we seen it in the United States? Because I'm just going to take it from the United States. I'm not going to talk about Korea, but in the United States, the exact same thing. We saw it with the flu, the thing that came from overseas, and it wasn't, and then it was, which is actually true. But then how many other things that happened? You had cigarette smokes, and cigarettes were causing cancer, and the companies knew about it and they covered it up. What about unions that misappropriated funds, or politicians that all of these things started, and they didn't have the full scope of this side, and everything in between. I mean, really, when you first start off, it is considered opinion, or and now it's or misinformation, because you're missing some information. So where is the line drawn of saying, hey, we have a story, here's some information that we have right here that can indicate this or this, but if a ruling government says, you know what, we don't like that, you can be punished. Wow, that could be dangerous. Pop7 says, Korean media can hardly openly criticize the president of the country. A Korean president of any stripe trying to control speech within the country shouldn't surprise anybody. Yeah, there's been some problems with that. And actually in Korea's past, what we've ended up seeing is, way back in the day, if you spoke against the government, people disappeared. There's like, if you really search, there was like newscasters that spoke against the Korean government a long time ago, during the time that I was alive, and they disappeared. I mean, this wasn't too long ago. And I'm not talking like, a few years or whatever, but, a decade plus or whatever. Well, it was probably like the 70s, I think it was. And that's not a long time past. I mean, that's recent history. So yeah, it just kind of begs the question: is who is going to rule and judge of what is good speech and what is hate speech, what is information, what is misinformation? And no, you can't have this opinion because your opinion has now been judged as being misinformation because it doesn't have all the information. And by the way, it goes against our party lines, or this or that or whatever. Wow. I mean, that is absolutely crazy. Case in point, I saw a video online, so you got to take that with a grain of salt right there. Saw a video of where there were, a guy asked, and he says, I think it was a reporter from the UK or whatever, and this guy asked this other person that they were interviewing or whatever, well, how many how many times do you think Russia put people in jail or arrested them, same, for online speech or things that they said on social media? And the guy's like, I don't know, well, it was 300. And it's like, wow, in a year, they arrested 300 people in a year for the things they said on social media, which is getting kind of crazy. So, Terry's here. He said, yeah, it's getting crazy. So it was like 300 people in a year in Russia jailing people for what they said on social media. And then they asked this individual who was apparently, I'm going to go out on a limb and say he was also a UK citizen or some UK personality of some sort, that he was interviewing and saying, well, how many people do you think in the UK have been arrested for social media posts and so on and so forth? And it's like, well, Russia is terrible. They're bad. I mean, look, the war in Ukraine and so on and so forth. So obviously it's got to be less. No, it's like 3,000 in a year in the UK. Hell, you got reports of people in the UK that can't even fly their own national flag because it's offensive to certain groups of people that now that left other countries and came and reside within the UK. Is what I said just hate speech, or is it stating a fact, or is it misinformation because I'm not presenting all the information? Slippery slope, yes indeedy. So, this whole thing of this freedom of speech that we have, and there's different levels of speech that you have within different countries, that's for sure. Let's get back to the article, and we'll see how this goes. Justice Minister Jung Sung-ho said the government would support a parliamentary debate on anti-hate speech law modeled after similar legislation in Europe and Japan. That's like, I don't know if I like that either, because we see some clear trampling of people's rights and freedom of speech. Hell, if you can't even fly your own flag in your own country, I don't know if you want to model things after that part of Europe. I'm just saying. He added the law would include fines for online platforms that fail to remove hateful or manipulated content. I don't know. Back in the day, communism, the state owns everything. The state runs everything. They run the media. They run this and that. Everything has to get approved by the state. Usually it's called communism. We've seen it in Russia and Stalin and Lenin and Mao Zedong and, the crazy dude up north in North Korea. His family's been doing it for decades. Now you're going to be fined, and now the platforms are going to come under, they're going to get between a rock and a hard place. And of course, if they don't want fines or punishments, they're going to be the arm of the government that is going to remove hate speech or manipulated content. And again, what is the basis and what are the standards of saying this is hateful? Just because a bunch of people or even a small group of people say that it's hateful and offensive when it's not, kind of like what we're seeing in Europe and some places in the United States, manipulated content. Those are very ambiguous terms. Imlovmo says it is estimated that over 12,000 people were arrested in the UK in 2023 for social media posts. What? 12? That is insane. 12,000 people in 2023 arrested for social media posts. That is ultimately insane. And again, who deems things as being offensive or hateful or misinformation? Who is the judge and jury in this? Yeah, that is really extreme. Lee endorsed the plan, saying that the review should also abolish the criminal defamation clause that punishes factual statements. Okay, he's throwing a bone. But again, that's just so ironic that it's saying, okay, we're gonna punish hate speech, but we're not going to tell you how we're going to define hate speech or whether it's hateful to a small minority or to the large minority, or is it going to be hate is going to be defined as whatever the ruling political party says it is. And so, I mean, we saw that with communism. It's probably not a good thing. I don't know. He added such cases should be settled in civil law rather than through criminal prosecution. So throwing a bone is saying, but again, if you can get in trouble and you can get punished for misinformation, but you're going to abolish the criminal defamation clause that punishes factual statements. Seriously? Really? So you're going to punish yourself? I mean, where, like, and Lovemos pointed out, what do you do with the, with the news? What do you do with, media? Is there going to be any factual news reporting anymore with here's one side of the story, here's another side of the story, just report on it. And of course, we all know that news, organizations have political lines of which they are drawn to and put out. So you really need to have that freedom of speech to be able to get the view from one side or the opinion from one side and opinion from another, and then you can kind of look at it and say, hey, boom, there it is. But unfortunately, that's the way our media has become. It used to be media was media. Reporters would report facts and say, hey, there's a fire down at, blah, 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 and whatever. And, oh, there was a robbery and blah, blah, blah. And this politician has been, arrested for, breaking these laws and da, 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 da. And nowadays, those factual events are manipulated and misinformation is really at least in the United States. I'm not saying here in Korea. I'm saying in the United States, you can get somebody that broke the law. But depending on the political affiliation of the media outlet, they can totally switch that around and create misinformation and say, well, the only reason this is being reported is because of hate. They hate these groups or these minorities or hate these whatever it is, this person, it's unfair, it's unjust, and so, but then you find out that they still broke the law. So instead of reporting just the facts and people can make their own determination, propaganda, which really is what it is, has come down to where you have these media companies, and the most massive ones are arms of political organizations and political movements to force their ideology upon the masses. And now it's kind of like under communism. That's the same thing in communism. We're going to force feed you what we think is true and what we want to be seen as true. And anything outside of that is going to be hate and discrimination and misinformation. And oh, by the way, we can put you in prison, we can give you fines, we can kill you. I mean, we've seen all that throughout history. It's been a very bad thing. So going down this road is very, very problematic. I don't know. It's just Terry says, he says, I saw a video in England where 6 police officers picked up a World War II veteran out of his wheelchair and hauled him off to jail because the sign he was holding was offensive. Yeah. There's people that have been arrested for walking their dogs because the dog has been considered offensive by certain religious groups of people that moved into the UK. It's like, wait a second. The guy and his dog in the neighborhood who grew up there for 25 years, guy's been walking his dog forever and a day. And then suddenly all these new people that aren't even citizens of the UK are saying, oh, that's offensive to them. And so now they have police that are actually stopping people from walking their dogs in their own neighborhoods. Again, that's an example of who deems what is hateful and offensive. Is it the majority? Is it an objective list of that you can verify? Or is it just because it's offensive to somebody, it means it's offensive? Well, you came to the country, you should be assimilating into that country. Yeah, it's just so many problems. And again, people get in the UK getting arrested for flying the UK flag or having it on their house in those same neighborhood areas that they've been flying the flag forever. But suddenly now the minority has come in and they find that offensive, then it's like, well, tell the minority they can go back to their own country. You know, if you don't, and that's the problem with this whole thing for globalization. Yeah, don't get me started on that. Don't get me started. Personnel Management Minister Che Dong-suk proposed new disciplinary measures that would result in immediate dismissal of civil servants found to have committed hate speech. So, if you who says it's hate speech or misinformation, and if it's drawn upon the lines of a political party, and here are the opposite political party, and wow, talk about a way to clear out the undesirables from government service. I. But then on the other side of the coin, are there things that are being said by government officials and employees that is just straight up hate and, misogynistic or, things like that? Is it discriminating against sex or race or things like that? Yeah, there's people that have done that in every government around the world, and those people should be fired. But the problem is when you have such this malleable situational ethic, my truth, your truth, but my truth is more important than your truth because we're in power. That can be very problematic. The rule will apply to all senior officials, including the National Human Rights Commission and the Korean Red Cross. Lee referenced an incident involving the Korean Red Cross, President Kim Chul-soo, who reported to have made racist remarks about foreign ambassadors at a diplomatic event. Excuse me, a senior official recently made comments about white faces and black faces and still holds his position. This cannot be accepted in public service. Yeah, stuff like that I can get, but it doesn't take much to overstep that to get to a place of where you say, well, anything that we disagree with, and if you disagree with our stance, we're considering that misinformation, boom, we're going to punish you. You're going to lose your job and whatever. In the wake of the controversy, Kim offered to resign after Lee ordered a government inspection into the matter. The Red Cross confirmed Kim had expressed his intention to step down and take responsibility for his remarks. In another incident, a promotional video in Gumi City Noodle Festival in North Gyeongsang Province was removed after drawing criticism for showing a performer in full blackface and curly wig impersonating a cartoon character from the popular cartoon of the 80s, Dooley, the little dinosaur. I've seen that cartoon, Dooley, the little dinosaur. It's a cute little thing, and the blackface wasn't like somebody who was painted blackface. It was just representing somebody with dark skin and black curly hair, and that was the person. It was a cartoon. But then you had the Koreans characters that were black hair, straight, kind of, you could tell they were Korean. That's all I'm saying. I'm just saying that you could tell that they were Asian cartoon characters. And then what about how far are we going to take this? So now we've went from one extreme of where, we have true hate and offensive remarks, and then now we've gone to the other extreme of saying, well, now any of this is, that representation of the character, that's bad, and it's, seriously, it was a cartoon character that represented somebody that wasn't Korean, that had dark skin. Then you had characters that were obviously Korean characters, and then you had a dinosaur, and then you had other characters from other nationalities on that cartoon show from the 80s. So I don't. Why are we? Seriously, and Dooley was cool. It was kind of a cute little show. Lee urged political parties to remove banners, slogans, and oh no, you got to see this. You got to see this. I got to be careful what I say. Lee also urged political parties to remove banners and slogans containing hateful or vulgar language, saying that legal privileges granted to parties should not be abused. Hateful or vulgar language. I kind of get the vulgar language thing. You know, no cursing, swearing. Of course, I'm older, so it's kind of the thing there. It's just kind of crazy. Ferris pops in, says, hey, good morning. Good morning, sir. Good to see you again. And Love Mo says, the British taking abuse from immigrants makes sense to me. I worked in a group of British people in Korea in the 1990s. They were either left-wingers or upper-class toffs. Long time coming. So, yeah, this whole thing here about, vulgar language. Personally, I'm older, so, if we get into this thing of, dropping F-bombs or putting the C word on signs or, whatever. I was taught and I was raised to not do that. I still curse and swear like a sailor sometimes after being in the Army. Very, very rare now. But, to have signs like that, freedom of speech, yes, but I was grown and raised in the fact that, yes, you have that freedom, but just because you can doesn't mean you should. And with kids around and so on and so forth. So that's just a personal thing. If somebody has a sign that has swear words or whatever, it doesn't bother me. But in my own how I deal and how I express myself, I do take children into account for that. So, but I would not go and say and make it a ruling, a law, or whatever. But then again, here in Korea, you really don't see a lot of that. And again, what is considered hateful? Is it based on party lines? And if you're of an opposite party, then thus it suddenly becomes hateful and vulgar? Faritha says, freedom of speech is a great power. It should be used responsibly. Absolutely true. And here, it says, even if a law is intended to protect political expression, it must be revised or abolished if it is being misused. Misused, misinformation. Who is the one that determines that? The president said he would continue to peruse reforms to ensure that hate speech and fabricated information or misinformation are met with new firm punishment while safeguarding free expression. Freedom of expression cannot justify indecent or divisive words. Well, who determines which words are divisive? That's the problem. That's the slippery slope. Hate and falsehoods threaten the very foundation of democracy and must be confronted by law. Well, is it your view of democracy? What about the other political party and how they view democracy? Could be some words that are considered indecent by one political party or one faction would not be indecent or divisive or misinformation or considered hate speech by another. So, and again, this could be a very slippery slope of when we're talking about having this zero policy of hate speech and disinformation, crimes that clearly go beyond the free limits. But when we start, looking into all this stuff and the terms that they use, we can no longer overlook hate or disinformation disguised as opinion or distorting facts and violate human dignity or crimes that must be punished. I don't know. Has anybody read the book 1984? And again, we talked about, he says a clear boundary between legitimate speech and incitement that endangers the public. We talked about that, about, going into a theater or going into an airport and yelling, I have a gun or I have a bomb. It causes panic and people, can get hurt. I totally understand that. But this is just, there's a whole lot of wiggle room in here. And that's very problematic to say that, we're going to make this punishable. And again, especially the part of who think of it as a little kid. You're on the playground, you're in, elementary or middle school or whatever, and then somebody says something to you and you're offended. He hates me. He said something. He called me a bad name or whatever it is. I mean, and it doesn't even have to be a bad name, but as long as I took offense to that, and I mean, should that other child be punished? I don't think so. I and again, where, and what do you do with lying? What do you do with lying? And again, if there's disinformation, what do we end up saying? Well, who says it's disinformation? Again, is it a political party? Is it a faction? Is it this and that? Is it really somebody who has the best interests at heart? Or is it a political group that is coming into a country that's trying to undermine the culture in the country? See, it's very, very problematic. And Ludlow says responsibility or responsibly. However, I'm not responsible for your hurt feelings. Apparently you can be. And it's the squeaky wheel gets the grease? If that's the case, is that really just? Is this idea of truth really concrete? Or is it just liquid and we just flow with whatever definitions of whoever's in charge? This could be problematic. This could be problematic. Veritha says freedom of speech is great. So yes, a kid calling another kid a bad name is allowed under that premise, but you need to teach those kids that being a dick has consequences. Absolutely true. But then how many times have other kids just told outright lies? And how many times has the teacher sided on the wrong side and didn't get the full deal? The full scope of what went on in the playground, altercation or whatever that happened. As parents, we have a huge job to teach our children to, not be that thing that was mentioned. To be good, decent human beings. We should do that. I really like the way Japan raises their children. And in school, like the first X number of years that they go to school, they don't get grades because they're taught about developing the character of the child into a responsible human being, with customs and courtesies and thank you and yes please and work ethic. They don't have janitors in Japanese schools because the kids do it. So they learn responsibility. They learn how to do hard work, and it cuts down on taxes too. So there's that. But they really developed the child at a young age to have respect for elders and all of this stuff. Say please and thank you and all of that too, which is really deficient in a lot of countries around the world, where other countries don't even give a damn on whether they teach kids how to say please and thank you. With that, here in Korea, the cartoons for children are way different than the cartoons in the United States for children. Here in Korea, a lot of the cartoons focus on being polite, being respectful, being caring, loving, sharing, doing all this stuff, being part of the family, and all of this stuff that comes into play. It really takes it into giving guidelines of how that child should be. And in the United States, it's like, no, we have the exact opposite. You can yell and scream and you can be whatever you want. Don't listen to your parents. Parents are often portrayed as being idiots in cartoons, and the children are, whatever. It's the exact opposite many times. And Ludmo says, what do you do with lying? Nailed it. What do you do with narcissistic bad actors? This is a perfect environment for them to take full advantage and not get their BS called out on. Yeah, I know. Teaching responsibility and consequences. Big yes. Absolutely yes. But when the government comes in, and I'm just saying this as a generality, when the government comes in and dictates on what you can and can't say, what is misinformation, and because we don't agree with this for whatever, that is now considered hate speech. Or now even the bigger problem is somebody lies and says something against you, and they're part of a minority that has the ear of the government, or they're part of a political party of the current administration that ends up, oh, well, now you can get fired. If you can get fired from your government job, can you get fired from your regular job? We've seen that. How many people have been called out on TikTok for doing stupid stuff, and their employers, and legitimately so, the adult that slaps a kid or whatever, or calls somebody the N word and, to a child or whatever, and then, and it gets back, and people on TikTok find out where they work and they get fired. Yeah, there are some consequences. You have the freedom to speak, absolutely. But just because you can open your pie hole doesn't mean you should. You should just be stuffing pie in your pie hole, not letting out stupid words like that. But that begs the question, what happens if somebody lies about you? Because it's their truth and not your truth. And your truth has somehow gone away because their truth overrides your truth because they're in charge. Or they have the ear, or their, the agenda and the thing that they follow in their life is now deemed more important than your truth. Holy crow, that is absolutely crazy. Yeah, it is. And this is continuing on. We're going to get into this next part here because we're building up to Chinese tourists, and you'll see how this goes. Momentum builds for hate speech ban as president steps in. China out. China, get out. This is an anti-China rally in Gyeongju, North Gyeongsang province, ahead of the summit, and they're saying, "Hey, Chinese, get out." The president calls for strict penalties against expressions of hatred based on race or nationality. Okay. This is interesting because I don't think we should say hateful things against, people of other races or nationalities. Take people as individuals and call them out for the stupid stuff that they do, if they do stupid stuff. But, it's kind of like saying, it ends up, all the Chinese are bad. No, not all Chinese bad. Well, people have said all Koreans are bad. No, not all Koreans are bad. United States, USA, citizens of the United States, they're all bad. They're all terrible. No, they're not. They're not. There's a bunch of stupid people in the United States. That's absolutely true. But not all of them are bad. You just have to judge them on an individual basis. And there's a rub that comes with this, but we'll get a little bit into that a little bit later. It's kind of a thing. Cabinet meeting, Lee condemned what he described as anachronistic discrimination and hate, instructed police and officials to strengthen efforts to penalize hate speech and disinformation. On social media, hate speech targeting specific groups is being spread indiscriminately, and false and manipulated information is flooding the space. These acts are clear criminal behavior that go beyond limits of freedom of expression, that poses a serious threat to our democracy and the very fabric of our everyday life. There was a demonstration in Seoul where demonstrators chanted slogans such as "China out." Tensions fueled by such gatherings prompted the Chinese embassy in Seoul to recently issue a safety advisory for its nationals. I get that. That's you don't want to commit crimes against Chinese or other certain people, based off of them as a race, and just a blanket, stereotypical point of view. Again, they're trying to criminalize hateful remarks by targeting foreign nationals or specific ethnic groups. The bill by Yang Bungnam, the ruling party of Democratic Party of Korea, which is the liberal side. The People Power group is kind of like the right-leaning conservative side. would expand the criminal code to make it a crime to publicly defame or insult certain groups, extending protections beyond the current focus of it on individual victims. But then there's the question of who is considering it defamatory or insulting, and how far does that go? Can you call out people from certain countries or nationalities or races as individuals of doing things, stupid things, or do they get a pass because they belong to that nationality or group or whatever? I don't know. At the anti-China rally held on 3 October, participants sang what is known as the Zhang song, which contained lyrics such as a derogatory slur used to refer to Chinese people. It's probably not a good thing. I'm going to equate that to probably being like the N-word in the United States. North Korean commies and Reds should get out of Korea as soon as possible. Yeah, I mean, communism is bad. We all know that. So, but trying to link those two things together, Chinese is communist, though. So there's that. While hurling various insults and spreading false claims about China's involvement in the fire that occurred at the National Resource Management Center and election fraud. Again, this goes back to, is this misinformation? And how many times in our history have we, things had popped up and where it ends up, oh, this came out and it's like, oh, this country was involved or this or that or whatever. And it's like, no, it wasn't. That's misinformation. That's lying. And then it turned out it was absolutely true. So what in that situation, what do you do? So if somebody says something and it's deemed as misinformation and you get punished for it, you get fined and punished, and hell, you could probably lose your job, as we've seen in many places around the world. And then later it's determined that what you said was actually true. Is there recourse for that? Can you sue the government because they overstepped the bounds because they didn't get the full story? So they punished you based off of saying that what you posted was misinformation, but then later out it turns to be real information and trustful and reliable information, and that person was actually true. Can you sue the government? Can you sue your employer for firing you because of what the government did to you? You see what I'm saying? Very, 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 very problematic. Currently, both defamation by false statement and insult are limited only to cases where the specific individual is identifiable as the victim and do not acknowledge insults or defamation targeting a group. Perpetrators and participants in an anti-China rallies are exploiting this legal loophole. If signed into law, violators could face up to 5 years in prison or 10 million won, which is about $6,800 in fines for defamation, and 1 year in prison or 2 million won in fines for public insults. But critics, including the conservative opposition People Power Party and legal scholars, argue that the proposed bill imposes a double standard and poses a serious threat to free speech. They have ignored the anti-American protests, long held by the Korean Federation of Trade Unions, yet now they say they will jail people for holding anti-China protests. The party speaker, whose country is this really? The Republic of Korea belongs to the people of liberal democracy. And I kind of thought about that too when we were going over this. Driven by China's installation of large fixed platforms and maritime structures in the West Sea and high-profile kidnappings involving Chinese perpetrators targeting Korean citizens in Cambodia, anti-China sentiment is growing in Korea. Imagine that. I wonder why. But again, we shouldn't get to a place of saying that all Chinese people are bad. Just call out the ones that do the stupid stuff or commit crimes and call it good. Same thing with Americans or anybody else. An online petition calling for a retraction of a temporary visa-free policy for Chinese tourist groups garnered more than 120,000 signatures last month, reflecting broader unease for both public safety and foreign influence. So, nevertheless, limiting the constitutional right to freedom of speech by criminalizing remarks deemed offensive to some groups of people is overstretching and highly inappropriate, said a media professor at a national university. I'm aware of a problem of hate speech has been increasing recently, yet there is no control mechanism for it. But I have doubts of whether criminal punishment is really necessary, even if it is, the proposed prison time is deemed too excessive. The issue could be discussed further to reach social consensus. Yeah, I mean, that's... what do we do with this? I mean... This is indeed a very slippery slope. And again, the whole thing is, no, anti-China protests are bad. That's absolutely terrible. And we're going to punish you. We're going to fine you. We're going to put you in prison if you go, let's say they enact this into law. And I can't, as a foreigner who resides here on a visa, I can't protest or do anything. So I have no dog in this hunt. So this is just commentary. I would say, i.e. my opinion, from an American perspective, so I'm not criticizing anything that the Korean government is doing, because I live by what they say. It has been a great country. I enjoy living here. I'm still planning on continuing to live here, so there's that. With that being said, again, who is the gatekeeper of all these things? And as is pointed out in this, the anti-China rallies, bad. Anti-American rallies, you hear crickets chirping. So we're just going to ban protests against other countries altogether? What about countries that are actively involved in terrorism? Now, are you going to punish those people that have rallies, that speak against countries that are actively engaged in terrorism around the world, or human trafficking, or, whatever it is, slavery? Yes. And again, if you're going to do it on one, are you going to be fair and do it against all of them? And then you get to the place of where you just can't protest at all because it's all deemed offensive and misinformation, and it's no longer opinion, but it's hate speech and disinformation disguised as opinion. And so now you can't really say any. It's just very problematic. It is very problematic. This comes into play because this deals with how countries deal with one another. And here in Korea, we have a neighbor up north, kind of that crazy uncle dude. Everybody's got the crazy uncle in their family that is like, oh, good Lord. Every once in a while he shows up, to some holiday celebration or Thanksgiving, and it's just really, really awkward. Yeah, that's kind of North Korea. But with that, here's the next interesting thing. So let's take a look at this here. This is an editorial. It's an opinion. So be careful because this could be considered disinformation might not be up for long if that law is enacted. I don't know. Lee's crackdown on anti-North Korean leaflets undermines free speech. And this is kind of an interesting thing because it talks about anti-North Korea leaflets that are flown and released into North Korea, kind of like they do leaflets and release them over here. But the current administration is kind of, they got like speaker systems up on the DMZ, and you have the North Koreans that their speaker systems are blaring North Korean propaganda. The South is blaring their speakers with the South Korean propaganda, and it's been going back and forth for ages. I mean, I used to work up on the DMZ while I was in the military. So yeah, it's a thing. I would take all my new guys and I would drive and I would stop and we could look across and see North Korea, and we could see North Korean guards. We have our binoculars out and we would be able to, and I'd tell my guys and gals, well, actually it was all guys. We didn't have any women in my unit. So there was that, or in my section. So I say, look, over there's North Korea. There's the guards looking back at you and the whole 9 yards. There is a threat to, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, not only for us, but for the South Koreans as well. we would find North Korean leaflets that would fly over through various means. And I had some in a photo album somewhere. I still have some North Korean propaganda. So there's that. But it is constantly kind of going back and forth. So there's that. Hey, we got George. George pops up and says, howdy. Good to see you. But with that said, there's always been some leaflets that go either north, come into the south goes into the north, or whatever, it's just kind of a little thing. But here, what we end up seeing is that the Democratic Party echoed the call urging law enforcement to impose strict enforcement measures against those people involved on anti-North Korean leaflets going to North Korea. So police have launched an investigation. And President Lee, this guy here, assumed office, and what he ended up doing is that he ordered suspension of the loudspeaker broadcasts directed at the North. So he kind of turned those off. It's kind of like the loud, noisy neighbor. He kind of turned those off, and I guess North Korea turned theirs off or low or whatever it is. So kind of nice, a little de-escalation thing. I totally agree with that. But now what they're saying is that using and dispersing these leaflets, like with helium gas for leaflet balloons, violates the High Pressure Gas Safety Control Act and constitutes grounds for immediate arrest. This sounds like something, if you get this and it sounds like, wait a second, shouldn't just it be a law? There is more to this. Illegal acts. This position echoes his stance when he pledged to mobilize every possible means to prevent leaflet launches. And again, he's kind of a liberal guy. He's kind of he doesn't have a hard stance against North Korea, which is, can be good or bad or whatever it is. He cited 7 legal statutes, including the Framework for Act on Management of Disasters and Safety, which allows certain zones to be dedicated as restricted danger areas, along with the High Pressure Gas Control Act, Waste Control Act, Marine Environment Act, and so on and so forth. So he's kind of done that. But this anti-leaflet law enacted by Moon Jae-in administration following pressure from Kim Yo-jong, Vice Department of North Korea's ruling party, was widely condemned by international community for infringing upon human rights. Here's the big one, South Korea's constitutional court later struck down the law, ruled it imposed an excessive restriction on free speech. Regardless of the legal basis cited, any renewed attempt to prosecute leaflet campaigns would be in direct conflict with the Constitution and amount to a legal workaround. So here is the thing. So with President Lee, what he ended up doing, he says, hey, we're not going to do this leaflet thing anymore. And that's why I thought it was really strange, because here it is, you can't do this because it's against the helium gas, whatever. It's against waste control. And, if the leaflets go into the water, that's against the Marine Act of this and this. And so it's like all of these other laws that are brought in to stop the leaflet activity is a workaround, because the Constitutional Court of Korea has already ruled that a previous law to outlaw leaflets was an excessive restriction on freedom of speech and expression. So all of these things that he's trying to do now is to try to work around that, basically a Supreme Court ruling. And so there's that. So that's very interesting. Leaflets have long served as a tool for informing North Korean citizens of the realities under the Kim Jong-un regime. They've also triggered hostile responses. So there's that. Hey, we've got lattes and coffee, and we have food here in South Korea, and you don't have to go to prison for saying, oh, wait a second, the wrong things. Anyway, we've got lattes, we got food, and we got some cool stores. In 2014, North Korea fired a balloon carrying leaflets, and more recently, the regime retaliated by sending balloons filled with human waste. And this was actually a thing. I would get emergency notifications on my phone saying, hey, be aware, there's balloons from North Korea that are filled with trash and human excrement that have flown down, and then they pop, and and Lord knows what else it could be. That was kind of a thing. It's like, really? we're sending our poo and our waste and trading it. It's just, I don't understand. Um, and yeah, radio transmissions and other media approaches may ultimately prove more effective than leaflet droppings to North Korean audiences, which they do have some of that. Rather than enforcing bans to skirt constitutional protections and push civic groups into clandestine operations, the government should seek to work collaboratively with these organizations to develop safer and more strategic channels of outreach. Treating leaflet campaigns as quasi-military threats only reinforces Pyongyang's narrative and risks undermining democratic values at home. So, yeah. Yeah, so it's kind of an interesting thing on what we end up seeing here is this leaflets. And again, this goes back to the days of where the United States used leaflets during the Vietnam War, and then the Vietnamese used leaflets and dropped them in, against the U.S. and other, France was in Vietnam, and I think Russia was in Vietnam, and of course, Russia was in Afghanistan, and leaflets and propaganda, the whole nine yards. It's been done over and over again because of the technology. But now we have radios. We have phones, cell phones, the whole nine yards. There's lots of different ways in which you can reach and get your information across without having to litter. Yeah, it's a thing. So, but again, I find it interesting that the Korean Supreme Court had already ruled that no, you can't do this. This is because that's would trample on the freedom or expression of people by saying, no, you can't do leaflets. And then now the current president has tried to doing these workarounds. Oh, well, this is misuse of helium. And, if a leaflet goes into the ocean, that's trash. And so that goes against our maritime laws and so on and so forth. And so it's just like, it's kind of, he's trying. Give him an A for effort, I guess. I don't know. But with all of this, it's kind of interesting because, now we get these things where we're talking about freedom of speech and expression. We have things from North Korea. We have things from China. China has been in the news a lot. And this has stemmed, for whatever reason, Korea has said, you have visa-free entry for Chinese tourists to come into Korea. And, you're going to get a piece of that tourist pie. I get that. I understand that. There's kind of a reason why a lot of Koreans are saying they don't like Chinese. And I would just say, I don't like people that do stupid. Because there's probably a lot of great Chinese people. I know when we went to Vietnam, Vietnam is a communist country. I was raised from birth in all my time during the military. I remember studying as part of my job in the military to study the silhouettes of Russian and Chinese, airplanes and tanks and vehicles and boats and whatever, by their silhouette. Oh, okay, that's a Russian this and that. This is a Chinese whatever, blah, blah. I remember going through those cards and memorizing them. So they were considered the bad people in Vietnam. Oh, the bad people of Vietnam, the communists. But when we went on vacation to Vietnam, the Vietnamese people are great. Except for the people that tried to, stiff us on, some fees and things like that. Uber driver dropping us off in the middle of nowhere so we could get a more expensive toll and just take our money because the language barrier. You're still going to get some stupid people. But as a whole, the majority of Vietnamese people that we met were great people. So there's that. I don't have a dog in this hunt is what I'm saying. But the Chinese that come over here, there's a lot of tourists that are doing stupid. And that's why a lot of Korean people are getting pissed off because Chinese tourists are coming over here and some of the stupid Chinese tourists are doing some really stupid things and they're getting called out and Koreans are like, yeah, if you come to visit our country and you do these things, this is not respectful. We don't go over to your country and do stupid stuff. Which there's the point of that, there's still some Koreans that do stupid stuff. There's people that are stupid everywhere. But it's there seems to be a higher frequency, a much higher frequency of people doing stupid stuff from China than vice versa, with Korea. So, in case in point, I just want to kind of highlight some of these things. This is where it gets kind of interesting and why people are protesting. A child defecated in the heart of clean nature Jeju Island. A Chinese tourist family just watched. Boy lowers his pants and defecates near street trees. Woman appearing to be companions stands still and watch. Netizens shocked by unprecedented scenes. And there's the mom and there's the little kid that just dropped trowel and went at it. It's in the middle of Jeju City. There have been other cases of where Chinese tourists have defecated on national landmarks and natural historical sites and so on. So it's just crazy. Chinese people are really too much. Please make sure to see this. Was uploaded on a local mom cafe in Jeju. An author, Mr. A, shared photos along with a comment. It's somewhat acceptable that Chinese tourists come to Jeju for travel, but having a child defecate on the streets of another country is unacceptable. As a local resident, I was so angry that I reported it to the police. I mean, I've lived here. I've been in Korea for a total of over 15 years now with all the times that I've been here. And probably right behind her, there's a store with a bathroom. Just going to say. In the photos, the boy is squatting roadside with his pants down, defecating next to him. A woman stands. The mother, Mr. A, expressed outrage. What on earth are they thinking? Are people cleaning up even dog poop with bags, but human feces? Why dirty another country? They cross the crosswalk in groups if the light is green, even when it's red. I don't know where common sense ends. And added, if you see such Chinese tourists, let's all report them together. Many strange people these days, so don't engage them dangerously. Just keep reporting by text or phone calls. Maybe then etiquette warning signs will be posted. So, seriously, really? You're going to have your kid drop trowel in the middle of a city? A witness said, this is the first time I saw such a thing, and I was so stunned for a while, and then took a video. They were all Chinese, and when I spoke English, because I didn't understand Chinese, they ignored me. And so they uploaded the video. Even neighborhood dog poop is picked up in bags. Is that even a person? I only heard about China, but seeing it in reality is even more shocking. Is defecating on the street normal in that country? This is not even about dogs. What on earth is going on? Disorderly behavior of Chinese tourists caused controversy at the international community multiple times. In 2015, Thailand, Hong Kong, Chinese were called out for doing lots of bad things. But a lot of this has happened in, anyone who spits or defecates, urinates recklessly on streets, parks, or other places where many people are gathered or pass by can be fined up to 100,000 won or detained. So it's a minor offenses act. It's like a misdemeanor. But apparently, there's adults that do this as well. And this is the crazy part. I mean, it's not like it was a place where there's no stores, no bathrooms anywhere, no porta potties. And so it's like, well, okay, you got to go. As a parent, I could see that as a possible situation. But when you look at that photo, and I've actually been on Jeju-do, so in that city, so I know there are bathrooms there, a lot, public bathrooms, business bathrooms, whatever. And even if the bathroom is only for patrons who buy stuff, if my kid had to go to the bathroom, it's like, oh, we got to use the bathroom. Oh, it's only for patrons. Okay, give me a latte, and boom, I'm going to go take my kid to the bathroom. I'm totally fine with that. I understand that. It is what it is. But I wouldn't let my kid drop trowel in front of other people. I'm so glad that they blurred out the little kid and what was going on. But I mean, seriously, you're going to let your kid expose themselves to Lord knows what type of people that are out there who have video cameras? Seriously? That's the thing that bothered me the most. I was like, you've got to be insane. There's, Don't go behind the building in an alley or whatever because there's no bathrooms anywhere. Just for some strange reason, the city has no bathrooms. Go in an alley, hide. Just do it right on cars passing by, people with phones recording the whole 9 yards. I, I would safeguard my child a little bit better. That's all I'm saying. But even then, this whole thing of defecation by Chinese tourists we're getting more and more reports of this. So now you can kind of see of why it happened in Jeju Island in a historical nature whatever history, not history. What am I trying to say? Natural resource site or whatever. Anyway, they had people defecating and peeing and all that stuff, and it's like even though bathrooms were just steps away, they just kind of did their own thing. Well, it's continuing. I mean, who goes to a national monument or a natural historical spot and just goes? Who does that? I don't get it. I wouldn't do that in any country that I would go to. Many countries I've been to, I wouldn't do that and haven't done that. But it's continuing on, and it's getting so problematic that this is the newest one that pops up. Tourists filmed defecating on stone wall at South Korea's Gyeongbok Palace. This is probably the biggest palace in South Korea. I've been there a number of times. I've worn the traditional Korean dress and hanbok and all that stuff. Matter of fact, let me see if I can. There's the wife and I when we went to Vietnam. I won't do that. I wouldn't do that in a foreign country. It's absolutely insane. Man and woman were caught on camera defecating on the stone walls of the Gyeongbok Palace in central Seoul, provoking online criticism. I wonder why. In probably Seoul, Gyeongbok Palace, world-renowned city, global city. Footage was taken on November 10th, shows a man crouching in the bushes while holding toilet paper and a woman beside him pulling down her white pants to relieve herself. Yeah, they just dropped a deuce right there at Gyeongbok Palace, which is insane because there's people everywhere. And the weather was really nice, and so there's a ton of people. The person who filmed the scene told the pair appeared to be part of an overseas tour group that was nearby at the time. At the time, many Chinese tour groups were visiting Gyeongbok-gung, or Gyeongbok Palace. Police reportedly intervened to stop the act, but did not detain or charge the individuals. Under local law, defecating at a cultural heritage site is a misdemeanor under the Minor Crimes Act. Minor being a misdemeanor, not a minor as a child. The incident provoked online criticism with netizens calling for tougher punishments. Gyeongbok-gung, also known as Gyeongbok-gung Palace, was the main royal residence of the Joseon dynasty built in 1395, is located in northern Seoul, served as both the home of the royal family and the seat of government. Popular tourist destination. Yeah. It's just, what, seriously, really, we're have you ever seen a video of some foreigner going to the Great Wall and dropping a deuce? I've never heard of that. That is just totally crazy. George says this is just a disturbing amount of disrespect. Defecating on a historical site, Gyeongbok Palace. Holy crow. That is, people don't do that on the Great Wall of China. They don't do it at, the palaces that are there in China or the temples. And I've never heard of anybody else doing that. So for people to do that here in Korea is absolutely insane. So much disrespect. Dale, hey, Dale. Greetings, everyone. Greetings. Good to have you aboard, Dale. We're talking about people dropping deuces at the Gyeongbok Palace in Seoul, with tons of people around and Chinese tourists. And I know exactly where that wall is at. After seeing some other pictures and videos, I have walked that sidewalk and I know exactly where, and across the street, there's a ton of stores and restaurants and cafes, and they all have bathrooms. Seriously. Oh boy, yeah, that coffee really knocked it out of me. My constitution is popping up. I'm a little bit late today. I've got the choice of going across the street to a cafe and use their restroom in private, or I can do it outside in public where people can film me and I can bear my parts and privates and so on and so forth. And which one should I choose? What is going on with people? Seriously. Why, and that begs the question. So it's no wonder that Koreans that see this type of stuff are like, what are these people thinking? And is this normal for people in China? Again, I'm not saying all Chinese do this, but it's like it really makes you question what is the standard. And, I want to take a couple trips to China. There's some places that I want to go to, but now it's like, do they do this in their own historical palaces and landmarks and tourist? Do they do that there too? Makes me a little standoffish. It's like, ooh, maybe, I don't know, maybe we'll hold off on China a little bit. So, and that's why the Korean people are mad, is because there's so many reports of this and similar activities of where Chinese tourists are acting stupid and with disrespect and no regard to themselves, no regard for their children, being naked in front of a city of people where people can film them. I don't know. Maybe there's bad people that film children. Probably. Why would you not even try to cover up your child if they have to go and you can't take 10 steps to go into the cafe behind you to use their bathroom, and it absolutely has to be right there on the street corner. Wouldn't you like cover the kid up with your coat or something, or have the other people that are standing around, hey, can we just protect them? No, they don't even do that. Really? But she was on her phone scrolling. Ferrith says, people be nasty. Yes, people be nasty. Dale says, if he mutes, he's blowing puff puff. But I mean, as an adult, we had our child, we had our daughter. There's times where, accidents happen and so on and so forth, but never on a busy street corner in a city where there's a bathroom like 10 or 15 feet away. Where's the human decency? Where is the decency and respect that you have for your child, knowing that there are bad people out there that take videos of children and so on and so forth? So, just go ahead, drop trout. Let the world videotape you. I'm going to be here on my scroll, going on WeChat and in whatever, TikTok in China and social media, whatever. I don't care. Go ahead. What was the mom thinking? Holy crow, that is extremely stupid. So with this and a number of other incidents, we've had Chinese tourists going to restaurants. They're smoking. There's no smoking in restaurants. Smoking is really frowned upon here in Korea. Hell, you can't even smoke in the apartment we live in. You have to go outside. There's fines for smoking in the apartment buildings if you get caught. So there's that. But yet these people who are doing this stupid stuff in Korean restaurants didn't put out their cigarettes. They put the cigarette out on the table, burned the table. They're confronted about it. They got belligerent. They trash bathrooms in the restaurants. I mean, there's more and more reports of stuff like this. And it's like, now, did everybody in the Chinese tour group do this? Absolutely not. So it's a small segment of the people, but still it begs the question. I mean, you go to another country, you're representing your country. Be nice, be a good human being, be respectful of the laws of the country that you're coming to visit in. How hard is that? Apparently it's really hard. So that's why we have these protests, and Koreans are like, you know what? It's just not a good thing. So Ferrith says, all right, Steve, break is over. More work around the house to do. Good seeing you. Take care and enjoy your Sunday. You too as well. Don't work too hard. Take time to breathe and relax. Good seeing you again. Good seeing you again. But getting back to, that's why we're getting so many protests about China. China go home, Chinese, that's why a lot of Koreans are against this open tourism push for Chinese with visa free visiting, is because incidents like these are kind of getting out of hand and really nothing's being done with it. Laws aren't being enforced, these people aren't being detained. I mean, in some places of the world, if you expose your child in public, you can get in trouble for that, because it breaks certain laws. And again, the basic human decency. I don't want my child in the middle of a city showing his junk, and why would I allow that? What is going on in the mind of the person that allows their child to do that? I don't get it. So it's absolutely crazy. But yeah, the whole defecation thing is just not good. Just not good. I don't know. Just be a good person. Go to the bathroom in the bathroom. Just begs the question. Anyway, the other thing we're going to talk about is near and dear to my heart, and that is parking in Korea. Parking in Korea is going to be the interesting thing. We'll get away from dropping deuces and whatever. We'll get into something a little bit cleaner. Parking in Korea. Parking in Korea is different than the United States. Korea is not a very big country compared to the United States. I remember showing pictures to my wife and the wife's family before we went to the United States about shopping malls and the parking lots that were massive. And it was just like, holy crow, what? Why don't they use that land for businesses or growing food or rice or agriculture or whatever? No, it's just for parking. That's all. They were amazed. They couldn't understand that. Basically, anywhere you go in the United States, at least in my experience, you could always find parking spots. You go to stores, you can find a parking lot. You have a mall, there's a parking lot. Whatever it is, restaurant, there's a parking lot. There's tons of parking can be had in the United States. Granted, some places like New York, LA, it's hard, but the normal places, the everyday living places in states, Colorado, New Mexico, Arizona, some parts of California back in the day, Washington, Tennessee, Kentucky, Texas. Let's see, I've been to Louisiana, been to Illinois. Yeah, parking is pretty much anywhere you go, you can find a parking spot. Here in Korea, not so much. Because cars weren't really a thing, and so they built a lot of businesses, but not a lot of parking. And so parking can be limited. With that said, you'll see a bunch of people parking in places where they shouldn't park, on sidewalks and different places, and in the middle of crosswalks, people will park and put their four-way flashers on, and it's like, if you got your four-way flashers, you can pretty much just park wherever you want. Enforcement is, it's not much. They do have vehicles with cameras, kind of like the Google cameras. Will drive down the streets, and if you're illegally parked, they'll get a digital photo capture of your license plate, and you'll get a fine. We've experienced, I got a parking, it wasn't a parking ticket per se, but we got a ticket for a place because we parked there, but it was like a private parking, but there was no sign saying it was private parking, so it was just kind of like you got screwed. You just had to pay, 20 or 30,000 won, whatever it was, and it was like, oh, okay, well, I'm never coming back here again, so I don't got to worry about it. So, but parking is a thing, and living in an apartment, you have limited parking. We have underground parking. It's like one and a half or one and three-quarter parking spaces for each unit. I know. I don't understand. Either you should get one or two. What is 1.5 parking spaces? How does that work? It doesn't. Per unit. But again, Korea didn't have a lot of cars, so that's why you don't have, compared to Oahu. When we lived in Oahu in Waikiki, the condos that we lived in had enough parking spaces for everybody to have, 1 or 2 cars. The place we lived in had 2 parking spots per unit. So, everything was cool. But here, not so much. So you will have people parking in areas that they shouldn't be parking, and then they get a little warning, and then they get another warning, and then if they got like a yellow sticker with red and orange on it, then there's an actual ticket, which is a few 100,000 won or whatever. And so apartments are only supposed to allow X amount of vehicles for that apartment complex, like in ours, for example. Otherwise, you're going to park outside of the apartment alongside streets and so on and so forth. But then sometimes people rent, and I know that they have multiple vehicles. There are some people that I know that have 3 vehicles, and how they were able to get 3 vehicles registered here, I don't know, because you're only supposed to have 2, but they have 3. Again, it's just a weird thing. But with that, people will get tickets, they'll get notices, and so on and so forth, and people get mad. And so they do this thing called revenge parking. Revenge parking is a thing. George pops up and says, I guess a car and a motorcycle. Yeah, you could do that, except people that have motorcycles have places that they can park their motorcycle that's not like a designated spot, but they can park there. But here's the thing, and mostly this is GIs. I haven't seen any Korean in our apartment complex have a motorcycle. It's always the GIs. They have a motorcycle, and then they have a car, and so the motorcycle will park in the parking spot for a car, and then when the husband gets home or whatever, he moves his motorcycle and parks the car so it's right close to the elevator. So in other words, he's trying to get basically an assigned spot, and so he uses his motorcycle to keep that premium parking. Yeah. I remember I asked the guy, I actually asked the guy with the motorcycle, because he had moved his motorcycle, and then his wife couldn't park the car, and so he was parking the car. And it was like, hey, I noticed your bike. And he knew the way he was acting. And I just asked about the motorcycle. Well, I gotta move the motorcycle because during the winter, you can't do anything, and it's bad for the bike. And it's like, bro, he was making all this stuff saying it's too cold and it's bad for the motorcycle, blah, blah, blah. We're in underground parking, which is usually, 20 some odd degrees warmer than the outside. So I know he's talking BS. And I rode a motorcycle for years and years in Colorado, in the winter, in the cold, and the bike was parked outside. So I know he's talking bullshit. He was just using it as a way to get premium parking, which is like, dude, I get it, but don't blow smoke up my ass. It's not gonna work. So I was just like, oh, really? Oh, okay. Oh, well, have a nice day, jackwagon. But this revenge parking thing is interesting. And what I have seen in my own experience are people, especially the people with BMWs, Porsches, and Lexus. Those people, they're entitled, and they think that they can park anywhere. You will have people with Beamers, and I don't know what it is. Maybe it's in the contract. If you have a Beamer, and in the contract is, here's your monthly payment, here's your principal, here's your interest. Oh, and here's a caveat that says that you need to act entitled and you can park anywhere you want because that's part of being a Beamer owner. I don't know. Maybe it is those higher luxury end cars that you're still in debt and still paying on. You don't own it yet, so really it's not really a big status thing, but apparently it still is here in Korea and other places. They seem that they can park wherever they want. They will park, there's like parking areas, and then they will park over here, so you can't even get your car out. And so now you have to call the office, and then the office has to contact a person in their apartment, and it's like, oh, maybe they're not there or whatever, so you got to do like a 30-point turn or whatever, and you got to have somebody help you out because, you can't get out because the stupid person, Beamer luxury Lexus owner, parked in a place that they're not supposed to park where there's no parking spots. That happens. Some people get notices in mornings, and eventually some people get tickets. So with that, after all of that, this revenge parking comes into play. Owner blocks apartment complex entrance with a parked car. He parked his car in the entrance to the apartment complex because he was pissed off. horizontally in front of a vehicle barrier at the entrance of an apartment complex in Buncheon, Gyeonggi, in retaliation after receiving a parking violation notice that sparked widespread outrage online. The post titled "Revenge Illegal Parking at Apartment Entrance. What Should We Do?" Appeared in an online community along with a photo showing the incidents. And then image shows a white sedan parking horizontally, obstructing entry and exit to the entire apartment complex. And the building security guard said the driver parked the car and just kind of left after receiving a parking sticker, then fled the scene without leaving contact information. He just, I'll show you for me not parking in the right place and getting a ticket. I'm going to show you what? That you're continue to be stupid? Yeah. The author expressed frustration. Is there no way to resolve this or legal or enforced means? Residents are suffering. There's no recourse. One online commenter reacted with fury, saying, "This looks like something that could be reported to the police. Can it be towed? What if it's blocking a fire lane or emergency services vehicle? Holy crow, that comes into play." And this is not the first time of revenge parking has sparked outrage. There's one with a Bentley that parked in front of a gate of a parking lot because of, he was mad about the valet service, and so he blocked the entrance. And it is an offense to the General Traffic Obstruction Act under Article 185 of the Criminal Act, that damaging roads, bridges, or obstructing traffic, including intentionally blocking residential access roads and temporarily preventing vehicle passage, can be punished up to 10 years in prison or up to a 15 million won fine, which is basically 10 grand. As much as that law is on the books, it is not enforced here in Korea at all. Up to 10 years in prison. I don't think anybody has ever, for revenge parking, I haven't found, I may be wrong, but I looked and searched, and I haven't found anybody that has been charged or fined for revenge parking. But it probably should be. What goes through your head if you park your vehicle so that no one can get in or out of an entire apartment complex, and you did it because you got a ticket for parking somewhere that you weren't supposed to park at? And I can tell you, God's honest truth, you have to have multiple warnings to get a ticket. It takes multiple, and that's frustrating because people will, you'll have people in the big luxury cars. I don't know what it is with the luxury Beamers and Lexus and all that type of stuff, that they'll park in the economy parking spots. Of course, those are close to the elevator, so they'll have their big, huge car with, sticking out into, and it's like, dude, you're not an economy car. But they'll park there, and then they'll get the warning sticker, and of course, they get the warning sticker, they just, they'll get rid of that, and then they'll just do it from time to time, and eventually, if they keep doing it, then they'll get a ticket. It's not like the United States where, if a cop pulls up and sees somebody in a handicap spot that doesn't have the handicap placard and immediately give them a ticket, or the business calls and says, hey, this person is blocking traffic because they did this revenge parking thing, that vehicle can get immediately towed by that business. Boom. That's a thing in the United States. Here in Korea, that's not a thing. So there's been times where, thankfully, we've been retired, where we had to wait until somebody came home because we couldn't get our car out because they were parked and other people couldn't get out either. And it's like, well, we're retired, so, it's like, I guess we'll go to the store later or whatever. But there's other people that had to work that could not get out because of stupid parking people. And it's just kind of like, we can put a warning on there, warning sticker. That's it. I mean, for something like that, that should be a towable offense, in my opinion. I don't know. Let's see. George says it's clearly in the fine print for the BMW that unlike a cactus, the pricks are on the inside. That's a good one. That's a good one. Adam Bomb says, I'll buy a new one. I'll buy you a new one. Let's see. I'm trying to catch up on all these. At a four-way stop, Koreans' right-away mentality is most expensive goes first. There is a joke in which the expensive car owner gets in an accident and tells the cheap car owner. Yeah, I've been there, done that. The more expensive the car, the more entitlement they have, and they figure they have the right of way, compared to somebody who has a less expensive car. I've seen that. Four-way stop signs. It's bad enough that people in the United States don't know how to use a four-way stop. Here in Korea, it's just a free-for-all. And when you have the flashing red lights, which means you should probably stop, look at the four-way, and then go through when it's clear, not so much. There's blinking red lights at four ways, and nobody slows down to stop. Matter of fact, if you slow down to stop and some Korean is behind you, they will honk at you because you slowed down to stop to check and see. So you're either going to get constantly honked at for doing that, or you're going to assimilate into the Korean culture, and you're just going to see, okay, flashing red light, I don't see anybody, boom, and you're just going to go for it. I'm guilty of that. And then it gets to the point of where some other American will stop at the flashing four-way red light thing, and you're like behind him, and you're like, what are you doing? Go, there's no one there. And then you just got to remember that they're new to Korea. So yeah, it's but Adam brings up the point about the most expensive goes first. There's something to be said with that. And then there's also back in the day in the late 80s when I first got to Korea, the larger the vehicle, the more right-of-way you had. So when you had big industrial dump trucks and stuff like that, or buses, large vehicles, they have the right-of-way. If you're smaller than them, they have the right-of-way every single time. And even now, Koreans have gotten better at driving. And back then, large trucks, buses, whatever, they would just run lights like nobody's business. It's gotten a lot better. But there has still been some times, like within the last 6 months, that these huge, large dump trucks have just blown through red lights. Of course, there's nobody, going through, obviously, but they're driving and they just, boom, they just go right through that red light. And it's like, holy crow. Imagine if somebody pulled out that they didn't see. It would be over for them. Sajuge. I can't even remember what that means. I'm not sure. You'd have to put the translation for that. George says, thank heaven here in the U.S. I can still spend $45,000, buy myself a tank, and park it anywhere I want. But you can basically park anywhere you want in Korea, as long as you put your four-way flashers on. Yeah, you get. Numerous times, and it makes me feel so uncomfortable. We were with Korean family, and it was some holiday or whatever, and we had to stop at a convenience store and pick up some beer or whatever. And so the guy driving pulls up to this convenience store, but he's like double parked. He's out in double park, puts the four-way flashers on, and goes into the store to buy beer. And the car that he parked next to now can't get out. He's like, hey, what are you doing? I can't get out. Well, we got our flashers on. It's all good until, he's going to be right back. But we have our four-way flashers, so, it is what it is. And that's kind of the mentality. I've seen people park in crosswalks. I've seen people drive up on sidewalks and park on sidewalks, just anywhere and everywhere. It is amazing on what they'll park on the, if you have a road that's like goes this way and then the opposing traffic goes this way, usually you park on this side of the road. No, you'll have people that will park in opposite directions I'm just wondering how in the hell that happened. I guess they can't parallel park. I don't know, or whatever. It's just parking is just still kind of. There's still some parking snafus that pop up here in Korea that are like, really, really, after all these years, you're still. Yeah. There's a joke in which the expensive car owner gets in an accident and tells the cheap car owner, "I'll buy you a new one. I'll buy you a new one." Oh, okay, okay. Gotcha. Yeah, and for a lot of rich people, that's just it. They don't really care. It's just like it's no regard for their lack of safety. It's just kind of like, no big deal. I'm rich. I'll buy another one. That's crazy. George says yes, but the 76 millimeter really emphasizes the point. Yeah, it's just kind of funny. The parking in Korea still, from time to time, it still make you scratch your head, and you're like, seriously, really? That's what you're gonna do? So with that, yeah, it's the parking revenge. That is a new one. Um, in the United States, that wouldn't fly. Could you, because you would imagine if you live in an apartment and somebody parked their car so you couldn't get out, so you couldn't go to work, so you couldn't go to a doctor's appointment or shopping or whatever, it would be like your car would be keyed, vandalized, the tires would be slit, depending on where you are in the United States. Hell, it might even be set on fire in some places if you did something stupid like that. But the fact that somebody would do revenge parking because they got a parking ticket for parking somewhere that they shouldn't have, and here in Korea you have to get multiple warnings before you actually get a real ticket, is telling. That's a load of entitlement. That is a load of entitlement. It just blows my mind sometimes. And we got it in the United States as well. I think everybody, again, it's not talking, I'm not stereotyping Koreans as a whole, just calling out, the few stupid people. But there's people in the United States, they'll park in handicapped spots when they're not handicapped, or the person that takes up two parking spaces because, they got the Toyota RAV4, or Beamer or whatever, and it's an older Beamer. I hate people that have like the rundown luxury cars that aren't really luxury anymore, and they take up two spaces. It's seriously, just learn to park. That's all I gotta do. But the people parking in the handicapped spots, that pisses me off. That really pisses me off. And you've seen the videos of people, like the people in the wheelchair, where you have the handicap space and it has all that extra space, and that's because of the ramp that comes down. The person in the wheelchair is probably a quadriplegic or a paraplegic, and so they got the ramp that comes out of the van. And you've seen the videos of where the handicapped person goes into the Walmart, comes out, and a car parks, so he can't even get the ramp down. And the guy had to wait like over an hour or something. It's like, seriously, really? There's a reason why this is handicapped. It's for access. Oh, I didn't know. No, you knew it was handicapped. You just got caught, and you're just trying to claim ignorance. It's a handicapped spot. If you're not handicapped, don't park in the spot. That's all there is to it. It's really easy. Here's the thing that gets me is you have people parking in handicapped spots, but are they really handicapped? What about those people? That or somebody that parks in the handicapped handicapped spot, and they park there. They're obviously not handicapped because it's a family member's car who has a handicap placard, but yet they'll use the handicap parking spot. That pisses me off. That just pisses me off. And some of the stuff, you even see it on the military base. You'll get people that have the handicap placard, and they'll park in the handicap spot because it's close to the PX, right close to the door or the gym or the commissary or whatever, and you see the person pop up, and they're like, all righty, let's run to the PX and the commissary. And it's like, you just ran across to the front door. looks like you look kind of like me. You work, boom, you work out, obviously. And how are you handicapped that you can take that spot? Apparently, there was some scuttlebutt. Somebody called it out on somebody because that was the situation. This was all online. And for the Camp Humphreys thing, and this thing came up, and the person confronted the handicapped person, and the person said, "Well, there's other disabilities besides physical, and I have PTSD." I have that too. But does that mean that you're so handicapped that you deserve the handicapped spot because you have PTSD? You just sprinted across the parking lot to the front door of the commissary because, I don't know. Seriously? That pisses me off because physically you can walk from the furthest parking spot to the front door of the commissary of the PX and you would be absolutely fine. And you've got muscle tone. Obviously, you go to the gym. Obviously, you've worked out. But my PTSD. Oh, I need to use that handicap parking spot. Well, what about the person who's missing a leg? Now they can't use that spot, but you got PTSD because you're handicapped. So now you got the person with one leg with a crutch has to park further away. It's just like, I don't know. I remember a time before there was even handicap parking spots. And it was a free for all. If you got to the front, you got to the front. It didn't matter if you were handicapped or not. It was like, it is what it is. Survival of the fittest. And I remember seeing people on crutches and people with one leg and whatever, the cane or the crutch hopping and walking through the parking lot. And it was like, man, they were in shape, But now we've gone to the other extreme of where we get people that are like, oh, I have a mental disorder. I have PTSD. I have trauma. And so I have a handicap record and I can park here. And how dare you? Not all disabilities are physical. And it's like, if it's such a disability that affects your mental faculties that says that you are handicapped, I don't know if I want you driving 3,000 or 4,000, 5,000 pound vehicle, let alone get a parking spot right up front. Is your mental status so fragile that if you have to park one or two spots away, you're just going to have a meltdown? Or do you have no consideration for those who are actually physically injured and missing a leg or limb, or somebody who has CP or some debilitating disease that they can't walk? And it's like, for those people, I wish there was an even closer parking spot that they could have. People with the physical disabilities where it, like, you see them walk and you're like, oh my God, that hurts. It makes you just want to get a wheelchair. Hey, let me help you out and just roll you in there because it's just painful on how you're walking. It's just crazy. And the brilliant people that park in the fire lane. Oh yeah, fire lane. Don't get me started on that. I earned my blue tag. I use it as rarely as possible. Yeah, I could have gotten a handicap sticker. Honestly, I had other vets tell me, you need to push it. You could get a handicap sticker. You'd be good to go. And then you could park up front into wherever you ever play. And it's like, I'm not that guy. There's no way in good conscience I could live with myself getting a handicap sticker because of mental disorders, and I'm mental in so many ways. There's no way I could do that. My wife would not let me do that. I would not let me do that. But yeah, people that do that. And I'm just like, again, it begs the question, if you're so fragile in your mental state that if you can't, you have to park in in a handicap parking spot, but if you have to park one or two spots over, you're just going to go into full meltdown. You probably shouldn't be driving to begin with. That's all I'm saying. But the handicap spot, I think that should be for people that are physically handicapped, that actually have physical problems where it's like they're all knurled up and they're, and they have, and it's, dude, just park right next to the door. Forget the handicap parking spot. Just park right next to the door of the store. People like that, that's rough. I get that. But the people with the mental stuff, and you're physically fine. Adam Bob says, we have one handicap tenant and two handicap spots in the front of my apartment. They recently blacked out one spot. It's super wide. The wife calls it rock star parking. And then on the military base, we got some more for you. Man, that was a good latte this morning. Nailed it. Put a little bit of, I had some hazelnut infused beans, kind of a darker roast. And with that espresso, so the beans have got a faint hint of hazelnut and vanilla. Then I added some vanilla syrup, and then I also put some coconut in there. With a little bit of sweetened coconut. Oh my gosh. And then froth the milk a whole 9 yards. Oh, that was yummy for the tummy. That was awesome. Nailed it on that one. But military, being on a U.S. military base, you've got handicap parking, and then you have expectant mother parking. And then you have the parking for like the generals or the command sergeant major or, high up ranking officials. And then, of course, that also, is it just for the high ranking individual themselves, or does that also include their spouses, which are sometimes highly entitled? Yes. I remember being part of a military police unit, and I remember the spouses of high-ranking individuals that as they were coming through the gate, it was like, you need to salute me. It's like, well, ma'am, you're a civilian. We don't salute civilians. This guy was, it didn't happen to me, but it happened to a guy that I worked with, and he relayed this story, and he's like, this lady was yelling, and it was actually at Camp Humphreys a long time ago while I was still serving. And it was like she just went up and down on this dude. Up one side, down the other, just tearing him a new one. You need to respect my husband as so-and-so, colonel, whatever, full-bird colonel. And, you need to blah, blah, blah. You respect the rank of his car. And, like, rank of his car? What? Seriously? Do I salute the car? No, you salute me because I'm, married to the colonel, whatever. And it's just got blown out of proportion. She ended up calling the MP station and the captain and all this stuff. And it's just like, oh my gosh, seriously? Colonel so-and-so's wife, which everybody knew who she was because she was so entitled because of her husband's rank. Holy crow. She thought the laws didn't apply to her. And then it actually got to the point of where, over time, eventually you just salute every vehicle. Even to this day, I think you salute every vehicle. But now we have Korean nationals that work security on the main gates, and so, they kind of salute and whatever. I don't. I'm retired. I could care less. But I really hate the entitled spouses that think that because their husband has rank, they have rank, and that they should be afforded the same customs as courtesy as their spouse when they're just a fat tub of lard. Yeah, that's all I'm going to say. CB, hey, pops in, says, try some matcha in your coffee. I have never tried that, to be honest with you. I don't know. I'll have to. I've seen it. I don't know if I'm a matcha person. I'm not sure, but you know what? I'll try that next time I go out. I'll try. That's the green stuff, right? Green matcha. I don't even know what matcha is. They put metals on the car too. You'll have people. I mean, if it's a general, they'll have the little flag on the official card, like a 1, 2, or 3 or 4 star general. They'll have the stars, red flag with the star on it or whatever. Yeah, they'll have that, and if that passes by, I remember being in the service, and that if you saw that vehicle and the flag was, there, you had to salute because that meant that the high-ranking individual was in the car. So no matter what you're doing, PT or whatever, walking down the sidewalk, oh, general, boom, you'd salute. If it was covered up, then of course you couldn't see the flag, so that meant that the high-ranking officer was not in the vehicle. But as far as as far as people putting medals on their cars, no, but there are retirees that will put all types of stuff on their vehicles, kind of like the retirees that, and I'm a retiree. I'm a military retiree. I got 12 years overseas, whatever. I don't really care about that. So I don't wear the hat that says retiree or army or retired, whatever, still serving, retired. That's not me. I don't care if people do that. But they'll have their medals and all over their hats or their shirt. Their cars, they'll have the bumper stickers with all of their medals replicated on there that they got, and retiree, proudly served, and whatever. It's like I don't know. That's not my identity. I'm not into that, and so I never ever did that. I retired and I was like, I threw away my Class A uniform. And I'm done. I'm never going to see that thing again. But I'm going to take that check that Uncle Sam sends me. But I'm not going to. Even then, I don't have anything with military rank on it that I wear, saying that I used to be military. I don't have awards. None of that stuff. I don't do it. I don't do bumper stickers. I don't have hats that say retiree or even Army. Nope, don't do that. It's not my thing. But there are some people, there's some active duty and, of course, retirees, that their vehicle is just plastered with "thank me for my service," and it's like, I appreciate your service, but, it's kind of like screaming, "You will thank me for my service." And it's like, yeah, not so much. If you don't know who you are, and now that the time that you were in the military is the majority of your identity as a person, I'm probably not going to like you to begin with, because that's just not me. I don't know. Let's see. Adam Baum says matcha, green tea and coffee. Sounds good. Oh, it's a green tea? Why would you put that in coffee? Matcha is tea. Okay. I don't know. I'll try it. Hey, you don't know how many years we've done on the stripper pole. Corsair the Pirate. Hey, welcome back. Can we ask random questions about Korea? Yes, you can. If so, how did you buy your car in your visa status? Loan, pay in full? I'm pretty sure I'll be retiring out there in 3 years' time. As a civilian, wife with F4 visa. We ended up buying the car. We paid cash, and so no loan. We paid it off in full. And with the visa status, of course, I have an F1. Wife has F4 visa. The wife has the car in her name. I have the apartment in my name. But when buying the car, there was an app that Korean family members recommended, kind of like Carvana or whatever. You can search the car online app, and then they deliver it, and you can test drive it for like 3 days. And we got it checked by a couple of mechanics. They said, great deal. And I want to say it was like $10,000 or something like that. Sonata 2019, something like that. Sedan. Pretty nice car, one owner. And but there's a lot cheaper cars that you can get as well. As far as financing, I don't know. We haven't broached that situation. Matter with loans and buying vehicles or properties or anything like that. You can do that. I just don't have any experience. We've never, in my entire life, I've never bought a new car. Never financed a car. We always paid cash. It's just from beaters all the way. I don't know. Is this car that we got? This might be one of the newest cars that we have ever got, I think. It's definitely the nicest car that we've ever purchased, but it was used. But as far as visa status, as long as you have your approved visa and you have your Korean registration card, or the used to be called the RIK card, the alien registration card, your ID, as you have that, you're able to open up a Korean bank account, and then you're able to, buy a vehicle or whatever. We couldn't do it on a tourist visa. So we had to wait for our visas to get approved, and then we could get a car, get it registered, do all that good stuff. We have insurance, which is on a monthly basis. It comes out to about $95 a month. Used to be about $110 a month. But because we don't drive like normal working people, we drive like retired people, our insurance rates went down. So that was kind of cool. And yeah, so yeah, you can ask whatever questions you want. Hopefully that answers it. 3 years you'll be out here. Yeah, cool. CB says matcha green powder. They use it in food, almost anything here. Matcha. What is matcha? It says that it's a finely ground powder made. Let's take a look at this. Because honestly, I didn't know what it really was here. Finely ground powder made from shade-grown green tea leaves of the Camellia sinensis plant. Unlike other teas, the entire leaf is consumed. Concentrated powder, vibrant green color, unique flavor. Originated in China. Made in China. Famously associated with Japanese culture. Okay. Processed beverages. Hot, cold, creating frothy drink using latte smoothies. Really? I'm rich in antioxidants, vitamins, nutrients, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Described as having an earthy, grassy, subtle, sweet flavor with umami tones, or notes. Okay. I will try a matcha latte. I will try one, and we'll see how that goes. I can't say that I would put it into a latte right now, because my thinking of green and tea and grassy overtones doesn't seem it would go well with a latte. I don't know. Maybe it would. CD says, same here, Steve. Always bought low mileage Japanese or Korean cars cash. Yeah. Lauren, howdy, y'all. P.S. Combat vets should live tax-free forever. Yeah. I think people on Social Security shouldn't have to pay Social Security tax either. You should be exempt from that. Still holding out, crossing my fingers that hopefully one of these days Social Security recipients will eventually not have to pay tax anymore. Aw, Corsair the Pirate did a super chat. Oh, dude. Thank you. I'll be back for more questions as they come up. Just starting the process of thinking this whole process through. Hey, with that, let me give you my email address, officialthevariedlife@gmail.com. So there it is right there. Thank you so much for the super chat. You didn't have to do that. But you can email me if you have any questions. So, yeah. Oh, dude, that is so awesome. You didn't have to do that. But there's my email address, officialthevariedlife. Yeah, it's spelled correctly at gmail.com. So any questions you have, I'll share our experiences and what we've done. You can find some videos on stuff, our experiences. We posted a lot of stuff, or I posted a lot of stuff, and that can answer some questions. But yeah, feel free. I mean, shoot me questions, whatever you want to do. It doesn't have to be online here, live. If you want to, that's fine too. But yeah, I'm more than happy to help out and share our experiences of people that are thinking about coming to Korea and retiring. So, but yeah, back to Lauren saying, yeah, tax-free, combat vets. Social Security, I think that should be tax-free. I think if you pay off your house, there should be no more property tax, especially if you're a senior. Property tax should be done away with. The fact that they started Social Security wasn't taxed before. And then, matter of fact, it was Joe Biden. He was one of the politicians, this is obviously before he became president, that he actually voted to tax Social Security. And then, yeah, it's just horrible, horrible. I think Social Security shouldn't be taxed because you're getting taxed on everything and anything, and you get taxed on your taxes of being taxed, and it's just kind of crazy. I don't know. Could you do a video on condos in Korea? Yeah. I mean, I could do like an overview of. I can make a video of the overview of our apartment complex that we live in, and then maybe kind of go around to some other places. This is one of the better apartment complexes. Then maybe I could make a video for here, kind of showing the apartment grounds and stuff like that, and show the layout of our apartment. And then I could go to another apartment complex and show at least what the outside looks like. And then do some online stuff to show you where you can find apartments using Naver Real Estate and kind of narrow down your search. Yeah, that'd be a good thing to do. The process, yeah, for buying an apartment. Yeah, I got some videos, so search my channel for that, buying an apartment. I've got a video where we went over that. Basically, we paid cash for our apartment. So we sold our house in the United States. We made a good profit on it, which was tax-free, thankfully. And then we withdrew the money from Navy Federal Credit Union. We took it to a money exchange place off post, and then we went and exchanged it. And then when we went to closing, we paid cash that way. But you can also pay through your Korean bank and doing wire transfers and stuff like that from a Korean bank to the seller. You have Korean lawyers that are involved, real estate lawyers, your real estate agent. That is, that was kind of a thing. So, yeah. Corsair says, I'm still working. You retired. I still got money. You're on a fixed income. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm still trying to make some money, though. Still trying to make money. There's always that. Have the money work for you. Lauren says, Texas just passed a bill that over 60, we don't have to pay school levy tax. I pay more here in property tax than I do in Japan. I know, right? The property tax we had in Colorado just got insane for the house that we had that we sold. I mean, it was going up minimum $100 per year. And so when you extrapolate that and start figuring out when you're going to retire, add $100 on it, it's like, holy crow, I don't know if I'd be able to afford to retire because the property tax is just crazy expensive. Corsair says that's why the super chat. Okay, thank you. You didn't have to, but yeah, feel free to email me whatever questions you want. And if you want to do a FaceTime video, I mean, we could do that as well. Some people like doing that. Some people just do chat or emails. So if we got time, don't mind chatting either. CB says, I'm thinking about a condo in Japan. Japan's got a lot of properties available because it's an aging society. And so there's a lot of properties in Japan. There's no, I don't think there's a retirement visa for Japan. So unless you're a spouse, I'm not sure what the visa, how you do a long-term stay there. But yeah, they got some nice places in Japan. As far as properties, houses, condos, and things like that, there's a declining population because everybody's getting older and dying. Of course, here in Korea, we have a super age society as well. But property prices are still kind of up here in Korea. Depends on where you get it, though. So there's still deals to be had. But Japan had definitely got some real good deals. Oh, that brings up, what was it? I think Thailand has an overabundance of condominiums. And so condos prices are going down because I read something that they said on a few different articles that Thailand has like an overabundance of like 1.6 million condos, which is insane. Definitely over a million. I saw 1.3 and I saw 1.6. So somewhere in between, over a million. Condos with no buyers. And so the prices are just going down and down and down. But then Thailand has a bunch of problems with their government. They have a bunch of problems with immigration. They have a bunch of problems with Cambodia on the border. That whole thing has risen up. Thailand banks are closing or freezing accounts of foreigners with their visas and so on and so forth. It's absolutely crazy. CB says, I have a spousal visa. Bonus. That's awesome. Yeah, can't beat that. I mean, that's how I'm staying here in Korea, is because my spouse has Korean ancestry. So my wife's got the F4 visa. I've got the F1. So that works. Awesome. But yeah, that would be pretty cool. That Akiya idea is crazy. The only Akiyas I've seen are awful shacks. Yeah, I've seen some videos on that stuff, and there are some that are rough. They're cheap, but they're rough. Basically, you'd have to redo everything. But then there's some people have been telling me about how rebuilding or refurbishing properties in Japan, you have to meet the current building codes, which some of those can be pretty expensive. So that's why a number of properties are just sitting vacant to begin with. Nobody wants to rehab them, and they're in areas that are decline or in decline. So, but there's a lot of properties. But there are some properties here in Korea as well, kind of like outside in the country and stuff like that. So we're going to take a look at some countryside properties, because probably this next year we're going to be purchasing a property. It's either going to be an apartment for investment purposes, rented out, or if we can find a country place that has a big enough, a lot of square footage so that I can do my hobby stuff, then we could move out into the country, maybe about 30, maybe 40 minutes away from Camp Humphreys area, Pyeongtaek area, something like that. And we would live in the country and then just rent out this place. So we're thinking about that. But the price, it all comes down to price. So, and then we're also thinking about possibly financing an apartment, because if we pay all cash for an investment property, we'll make about 1 million won per month net profit. But with that, there's going to be some taxes. Whatever the tax is going to be is, that's not a deal killer. But the return on investment would be, what do we figure, 5%, almost 6% or whatever it is. But it ends up, if we financed an apartment and financed two apartments, instead of buying just one apartment in cash, our return on investment would be double. It'd be like 13.72% or whatever it was. And depending on the term of the loan, we would still be making about 1 million won per month net profit, but our return on investment would be greater, and the appreciation would be anywhere from 2 to 5% per year. So we're looking about maybe doing financing. So we might do that with our next apartment. I don't know. We'll see. Lauren says, CB, get your permanent resident visa and you can get one of those cheap houses. I purchased 2 lots of land and built my house on one. Oh, cool. Wow. CB says, if I can afford it, I want a new or recent build. I'm too old for any sort of fixer-upper. I wouldn't mind doing fixer-upper, but they don't have Home Depot, like a Home Depot type of store here in Korea. And I rehabbed over 60 houses. And so I had the pro account at Home Depot and stuff like that. I wouldn't be averse to that. Hell, I would have done the tile job in her place, but I'm retired. There is no Home Depot. You have to go each individual store, tile store, and then you have to go to a tool place, and you have to go to some other place or whatever. So it's not as convenient as a one-stop shop Home Depot type of place. And then it's like I would have to buy all the tools to do the tile job, but then when it's done, it's not like I'm going to go out and I'm going to rehab another place. So yeah, we just decided to have somebody come in and do the work for us. But if they had Home Depot, I might do that. So, yeah. But as far as fixer-uppers, I if I get a country home, I don't know. It would have to be a big enough place. And again, if it needed rehabbing, you'd probably have to call somebody to do it. Um, so it's according to building codes. And then, of course, the Ondal, floor heating system that they have. I'm not versed in that. I could probably get on YouTube and figure it out. Throw some pecs down and do all that. I could do all that. That's not a problem. But yeah, I would probably have to end up just paying somebody to do that. Lauren says, you need a Kenseki, Steve. That's the Uber Home Depot in Japan. Yeah, that's what we need. We need a Home Depot here in Korea. Hey, Zombie Hunter pops up and says hi. Yeah, good to see you again. Always good to have Zombie Hunter around. So, yeah, we're just kind of talking about rehabbing properties after we went over all of this other stuff over here, and talking about CB's got a place and land, and rehabbing properties and how there's no Home Depot in Korea. But let's see. Corsair asked the question: how hard is it to find contractors to do work, paint, floors, stuff like that? It's not hard. They have apps that you can get on your phone, that kind of like a handyman app or whatever. And through our Korean side of the family, they were able to, hey, here's an app, here's this, or contact this person or whatever, to get quotes on getting stuff done. But a lot of app stuff. So, and then of course personal recommendations. The tile person, I can't remember who we got recommended the tile for. But we always check the reviews to see if what they did. They came in, boom, knocked out our tile job. It was great. They did a real good job. So they have kind of like a Yelp handyman app review type of thing, so you can see. And the prices aren't too bad. I mean, it's always going to be cheaper if you do it yourself, always. But, considering it's like I'm paying somebody so that I don't have to do that anymore, I'm totally fine with that. So it's not too bad. And when we do the apartment tour, that was a good idea. I'll mention that in the video on the tile work that we got done and how that turned out. It was pretty good. Toku hands as well. So talking about like a Home Depot-ish type of store in Japan. Lauren says, I can live in a teepee as long as my printers work. Right? And that was kind of the thing. The prerequisites for getting a country home would have to be enough room for a workshop for me and my printer and future printers. So there's that. And then, yeah, just for my hobby stuff. And then, of course, filming or whatever, I would have to do that. I don't want to be like right next to people. I want to be away from people. So there's that. And as long as it's about 30 minutes away from Camp Humphreys, I would be good with that, because we still come on post to go to the post gym, one of the gyms on post, to work out, 3-4 days a week. So there's that. Yeah, I couldn't do the TP thing. Yeah. I have my creature comforts. And even then, right now we're planning on staying in this 4-bedroom, 2-bath. And we did some tile work already. We're probably going to end up getting the master bathroom retiled and redo the master bath, because it's got a small standing shower, and I mean small. It's like I'm kind of big. I'm 6'2" and 260. It is real hard for me to take a shower in the standing shower. That's how small it is. But yet they have a tub, a full-size tub, and so basically all on that one wall, you've got the shower and you've got the tub. And what we're thinking about doing is having somebody come in, take all of that out, redo the tile, and then just have like that whole area just have a shower head on this wall, a shower head on this wall, and then have the glass with an entry door in the middle, and then have like a bench seat in there, which I think would be really cool. So if you want to shower together, but it would definitely give more room. And then I think that would be kind of cool. So we'll see. But that's one of the bathrooms. The other bathroom needs to be redone, or could be redone. It doesn't have to be. Of course, the main master bath doesn't have to be redone, but we would definitely want it to be bigger and open it up. And we don't use the tub that much. If we do a tub, it would be a smaller, like a jet tub, jacuzzi tub, just smaller. And so that way we could make the standing shower area bigger too. So we'll see how that goes. Adam says, are those tiles on your wall left over from another job? No, those right there are soundproofing tiles. So they just got a little, they're like a foam fabric type of thing. And then they just got a sticky peel off that I just put on the wall there. So yeah, they're pretty good. They're not bad. Tile, if it was tile, that would just, the echo would be even worse. So I wanted to get that, and even on this front wall in front of me here, I'm thinking about getting some more of those to kind of eat up some of the echo in here. But that turns out pretty good. It wasn't bad. I got it from Amazon, by the way. So soundproofing hex tiles. You can look it up, and that turned out really good. I like it. It turned out well. So, in the tile job that we got done, we're talking like big tiles that they ended up doing, like in the hallway, because it had kind of the similar wallpaper all in the hallway, and I just didn't like that. And yeah, so we redid that. Of course, it helps in the summer because it keeps it cooler. In the winter, it's not too bad because you have the in-floor heating, or the heat rises, so it kind of holds heat as well. And then, of course, you got the walls and the insulation and stuff like that. So it turns out pretty nice, and it's easy to clean, and it's durable. So that's why we did the tile there. And thinking about doing not only the master bath, redoing that, have somebody come in and do that with what we wanted. I'm thinking about doing some other, at the same time, do some other walls in some of the bedrooms. So that way you can actually have walls to where you could hang more stuff on. And again, it's more durable. I don't know. We'll see how that goes. So many things we want to do, but whether we do them or not, that's another story. But yeah, so our next big thing is going to be buying an apartment, another apartment. Hold that thought. Be right back. Something fell. Yeah. Had a little clamp on a table that I clamped on there, but it was just like right on the edge. And then it just kind of slowly bink, and that's what fell and hit the floor. Sorry for that. Corsair says, wait, you own your place or rent it? We own it. We bought it. So 4-bedroom, 2-bath, about 1,500 square feet. Master bath, tub, standing shower, toilet with bidet, of course. We have bidet in both the bathrooms. The other bathroom has standing shower, sink, toilet. We've got that. Fairly nice place. Well, again, I'll probably go through. That's a good idea. I'll make a video and kind of update that and kind of show different apartments, at least the inside of ours, and then the outside of a couple other complexes to kind of give a range. And then, yeah, we bought it. We sold our house in the United States. We had enough profit to be able to buy this place. Initially, we were going to get a 3-bedroom, 2-bath because of our budget. We set a budget, this is how much we have, and this is what we're going to pay for a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. But this place was such a screaming deal, and it was outside of our initial budget, but it was too good of a deal. It is way too good of a deal. I think it was like 50 or 60,000 less than normally priced. So I had a motivated seller, and it was like, ooh, that is nice. And the whole idea was to buy a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, live in that, we'd be good to go, and then we have a bunch of money left over. Well, this was really nice, and since appreciation is anywhere from 2.5% a year, somewhere around there, maybe 3%, it was like, hey, well, we'll buy this place, pay cash, and then we still have some other money. We can make some more money, and then maybe we'll buy a 3-bedroom, 2-bath apartment, and then we'll downsize and move into that, and rent this place out. But we've gotten really nice here. This place is really nice. Again, 4-bedroom, 2-bath, and it's single family or condo. It's an apartment, so it's like a the layout. Let me see if I can find the neighbor. You can find the neighbor real estate, and I'll show you what we're talking about here. Matter of fact, and so it's family. CB says, "Are you satisfied with the apartment and the area? Any annoyances?" Oh, yeah, we are. We're happy with this place. It's real close to the military base, which is a bonus because we go there multiple times a week, to work out and stuff like that. So that's good. But it's far enough from the GI bars and stuff like that. It's far enough away that you don't get any of those annoyances. And there's a fair amount of foreigners that live in the apartment complex that we're in, but there's a good amount of Koreans as well. And then, of course, some Filipinos, there's some Chinese and stuff. There's even some foreign nationals from like Germany, UK, and other places, which is nice because they work for USFK or United Nations Command, and so you have some foreigners here as well. So it's a pretty big mix of people, and everybody's pretty nice for the most part. Our neighbors, there's only 2 units per floor for the size of apartment that we have, and our next door neighbors are pretty quiet, and I guess we're pretty quiet too. So yeah, we're satisfied. Corsair asks, what floor are you on? I think we're on the 7th floor. So it works out good. And I think there's, in these apartments, it's a total of 15 floors. So there's that. Let me pull up the neighbor map here, and I'll show you, because I can show you the layout of the property. So this is, if you look up here, it says neighbor map, and you go to neighbor and you get real estate. No, I don't want that. And we're going to go down here. And all of this area here is Camp Humphreys. And we'll do the satellite map. So all this area here, that's not country. That's where Camp Humphreys, Korea is. And our home is in this apartment complex here. And Brownstone Apartments. So, well, this is neighbor maps. So this isn't the real estate one. Corsair says, I've never lived up in the air in those apartments they have out there. Yeah, it's not bad. I mean, the apartments are great, actually. The landscaping is really nice. They got like a children's play. They got a couple of like a playground here. They got a playground over here. They got some other areas, sitting areas, and of course there's a path, walking path all around the entire complex. Over here they end up having, there's like a kindergarten over here and a senior center. They got some exercise equipment. But it's pretty nice, and there's a little kids place there. It's pretty nice. And then there's you got some restaurants over here, CU store, burger place. You got Le Pain, which is a little place over there, which is really nice. A little bistro, breakfast place, coffee and all that. And then Camp Humphreys is just right over here. So it's pretty close, but it's far enough away. Like here's this area here would be where like the majority of the bars and the clubs that are right outside the U.S. military base and shops and stores are right along this area here. So we're far enough away that you don't get any of that craziness. So let me see if we can find neighbor real estate. And that way I can show you the layout of this. There we go. And I use Chrome because Chrome you can translate from Korean to English. And that works out well. So I'll zoom out. I'll zoom in. Oh, wait a second. And let me see. Gonna zoom in on this. And we're looking for apartments. So we'll zoom in a little bit more. And Brownstone, they have 155 units for sale. And so they got a number of different apartments. And Naver is pretty good. Naver Real Estate is a great way, especially with the translation, to be able to kind of pre-screen, look at layouts of properties and so on and so forth. It is really, really good. CB says, Korea was crazy warm heating, the Ondal. Wish Japan had that. What? Japan doesn't have in-floor heating? You just got regular heating, right? Yeah, the in-floor heating, oh, it is so nice during the winter. Because then the floor is warm, it heats up the entire house, and so you can walk around barefoot, and it's still nice and warm. It is pretty good. I like it. I love it a lot. So, and with that, let's see if we can find one that is 110. Some that's got pictures on it. 370 million, 460, 310. I'm just trying to find something with a picture that we could kind of show the layout of ours. 301. Maybe that would be right there. Is that kind of the layout? No, that's not what ours looks like. That one? No, not that one. 110. That's basically what ours looks like there. And we'll Lauren says Japan has one floor. I have it in my house. Oh, okay, cool. Just the split air heat. Oh, okay, alrighty. Yeah, we've got the in-floor heating with a tankless water heater. So that's kind of how you use the city gas. So that's what we end up getting there. But this is kind of what we end up seeing. Let me see if I can do this. So there's an entryway. So this is basically the layout of the place that we have. Well, no, it's not, because this is a bigger one. But we have the entryway. They got a different bathroom. There's a bedroom, kitchen. We kind of got this similar layout here, except for ours, you have the master bedroom, and then the bath over here, we don't have like this closet extra room thing. But ours is still a 4-bedroom, 2-bath. So we just have another bedroom. Instead of having 2 bedrooms, we got 1, 2, and 3, and then the master bedroom. So Lauren says, I prefer the kotastu over the floor heat, but my wife wanted it. I know. You got to do what the wife wants, right? Let me see if I can find one that's ours. Let's see. Oh, here it is. So this is basically what ours looks like. And yeah, this is the layout that we have for ours, is exactly this right here. So this would be your entryway, and then there's like an R apartment. You'd have the elevator would be here, and then you have another unit on the other side. So there's only 2 units per floor. And you have the entryway, and you come in. You have this bedroom here. And then you have this room here, which is the room that we're in right now. And then we have this bedroom here, which is like the wife's little yoga exercise place that she has there. We've got the bathroom there, and then you come in here. We don't have like the door there. We just have a wall. We have the kitchen, which is laid out, little island thing. Our dining room table is here, and then we have our TV system, the couch, and all that. And then the laundry room here. And then when you go into here, you end up having, this is the master bedroom. And we kind of got the same thing here, except this is a little bit smaller. And that's where you have your air conditioning units, the outside condensers and stuff are in that room. So we got that. And then you have a little powder room. Wife has the walk-in closet. And then there is our master bath. So you got a small standing shower and a tub. And that's what we're thinking about redoing, is just making that whole thing either a really small tub and then a larger standing shower, just have 2 standing showers all in one enclosure there. So yeah, and then we got a pantry here. So yeah, that's the layout for our place. And we'll see how accurate these pictures are. See if we can make these. So yeah, there's the layout there. And this is a different layout. I haven't seen any apartments like this, but these pictures. So this little area here is the entryway, and that's looking down the hallway towards the living room and kitchen. And that's exactly what ours looked like. It had that pastel green look, which was like yuck. I didn't like that. So we got the cabinets resurfaced and everything in kind of a white, and then all of this down the hallway, we ended up doing tile for all of that instead of the wallpaper. But yeah, that's exactly the same type of tile we have there. We got rid of the green. It's got the gas stove. The oven is horrible, is useless basically. So we're going to redo that. But some good cabinet space, not bad. I still don't get it with Korea. Usually in the United States, you'll have the window or the sink is centered on the window, but here you can see the sink is off to one side, and it's, I don't know, it's a Korean thing. So there's that, so that's pretty much, but we got all that changed. So a lot of cabinet space, not many plugs. So, but the granite countertop is nice. We redid the facing, not only in the upper cabinets, but the lower cabinets, kind of like with a, whatever the color is. Kind of like a cream color, so it looks a lot brighter and nicer. Let's see. So yeah, and I changed out all the lights to LEDs. I did that myself. So there's that, and like up against this column here, we've got our little eating table there, which is a pretty nice table. So yeah, it's a good sized place. That's looking off of, that's where your TV and all that stuff would go. So yeah, the TV's on the left. On the right, you could put a TV there as well. Got some big windows there, so it's pretty nice. It's on the 7th floor. You got 2 air conditioners on that unit. You have an AC unit in the master bedroom. You got an AC unit in the other room. You got an AC unit here, but in the main hobby room, the last bedroom, it doesn't have an AC unit, and we can't put one in there, unfortunately. So there's the window. We got rid of that washer. We got a brand new LG system, so we got more room there. That's a gas one, which is old. That's the master bedroom. They've got this. It's basically unused space, but we've got our bed up against there, so it gives us more space. Got a little clothes drying thing. It's a Korean thing. Walk-in closet for the wife, so she loves that. And there is the master bath. So yeah, you can see the standing shower there, and then you can also, that's her little vanity. Doesn't show the tub though. That is the hobby room where I have my printers. So that's got, yeah, it's good, not bad. There's the master bath, small picture of that. And there's the entryway. So yeah, it is. It's a pretty nice layout. And that one, it's 390 million won now. Wow, so it went up in price. Cool. And like I said, what we ended up doing is buying at a discount. So we got a screaming deal on this, which is pretty nice. So yeah, go to Naver and Naver Real Estate, and if you have the Chrome, you can end up getting the translation plugin, so that way you can check out all these properties. And yeah, so the prices have gone up. That's interesting. 310 million, 275. That's probably a first floor. If it's on the first floor, it'll be the cheapest priced unit will be on the first floor. And as you go higher, they get higher in price. So 275, 280. So 275, I think that's the cheapest so far. So we'll see what happens. I think that's the cheapest one is the 275. So we're either going to buy another one here, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, but we'll put like 50% down. We'll look into financing and we'll carry that mortgage and rent it out. And we have enough money in reserves for vacancies and so on and so forth. 290 million. Okay. So yeah, it's 275. And these hold their prices pretty good. This is like a 9-year-old apartment, I think. So, and then let's take a look at some other apartments that are close by in Asan Technical Valley, which is pretty nice. So Asan has got EG the One, or Easy the One is what they call it. And they've got like 9 different buildings. Let's see if we can zoom in just a little bit more. And that is a newer city. And yeah, it is not bad. Walkability is great on that. And this one is 189 million to 240. Which building is that? That is the second complex. So that's a pretty older building. And let's see, what's this one? It's the 7th. So that's not bad. So we're going to get anywhere from 240 million to 350 million. So that won't be bad. So we're thinking about maybe doing one of these as well. 260 million. And there is we'll take a look at the pictures on this. I know some people are probably like, ooh, boring, but so this is a little bit of a different layout. So you have the main entry here, and then you come in, you've got full bath, you got a bedroom here, you got a bedroom there, and then you have a pantry, kitchen, you probably have your table coming out this way, and then your living room, and then you got your master bedroom, big walk-in closet, master bath, oh, and then you got your laundry room here off of the kitchen. So I kind of like this one as well. I like this layout. And a lot of Korean real estate, to be honest with you, will end up having smaller, or not smaller, but they'll have pictures of their real estate, which is different than the United States. Like these pictures are obviously pictures from when the unit was brand new. So a lot of them don't have pictures to begin with. Some of them will just have the pictures of when the unit was, first made. Sometimes you'll get pictures where they're actually the current pictures of the property and you see people's furniture and so on and so forth. So just be ready for that. That's definitely a thing. But like this one here, we can end up seeing, let me see if I can get this over enough to where I can get so that's part of the living room, that's part of the kitchen. That's a view you can actually see into the city, which is pretty nice. I would want something like that. Again, the windows, seriously, why would you even have that window there? I don't know. It's a thing. It's a walk-in closet. There's another window, bedroom, small bedroom. There's another one there. But this is a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. That's a decent-sized kitchen area. So that's not bad. And the cabinets aren't 1970s green, so that's nice. And yeah, so that looks good. I don't know about the dark colors, but I like the lighter colors and stuff. Cabinet's pretty good, not bad. Washer, dryer place. That is the pantry, and that's your circuit breaker for your property. So yeah, not bad, not bad. So something like this, a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, as an investment property. And again, this one is how much? 260 million won. And the apartment fees are 160,000 won per month. That's the management cost. That's for like, apartment maintenance, electricity for the complex, parking. I think they have underground parking here. They have above ground parking as well. And then, so all the maintenance, landscaping, paint, all of that, security, all of that is included in that. And some places will end up having the maintenance. The apartment fee will include sometimes the electricity or maybe even cable TV. Down here it says on here that it's individual heating, city gas, so that you would have to pay for that. Yeah. Senior center, daycare, fitness center, small library. Walkability is great in Asan, around that area. Pretty good. So, yeah, and it's a good rental place too. So we're thinking about something like that. So 260 million won. So that would be 260. Divide that by 14. We're just going to say 50 for the exchange rate. So 170, about $180,000, and that's not including some of the taxes that you'll have to have, fees, so on and so forth. One-time tax and fees that you have to pay. But that's pretty good. So it would be 130 million won that I would finance if I bought 2 of these. But I think we're going to start off, we'll buy one and then rent it out. We have enough money in reserve for any type of complications or anything like that. But that's a good deal right there. That is not bad. And that is building number 7, which is it's a newer one, but it's not crazy expensive like the other ones. So 260, 270, 240, there's another one. It's probably a first floor, so you could save a little bit of money on that. That wouldn't be bad either. Because if it's a rental property, I don't care if it's on the first floor. The long shot. It looks really good. But that's a high up though. Some of these will use pictures of different properties as long as they're the same layout, but they won't be, like I've seen pictures like this that is obviously not a first floor, but this says that it's a first floor property or a low floor property. 7th complex, total floors. It says low. 3.2, 150,000 won for the management fee. Is adjacent to a school adjacent apartment complex. So it's going to be kind of loud. The kids there are loud, especially during recess. So, yeah. But it's not bad. As an investment property, that'd be interesting. 260, 270 million, somewhere around there. 265, there's another one. Again, building 7. But, yeah. Thanks for the tip on Naver Real Estate site. We might be looking at Jeongju. Yeah, you can use it there as well. I've had a number of people contact me, showed them how to, like this, doing the Naver Real Estate, and they were able to, I had a few folks that want to go to Jeju and they were able to go through and check out properties with Neighbor to kind of narrow down their search, and it was pretty helpful for them. So, yeah, at least you can get a look at the property. You can get to look at the layout of the properties. You can see, square footage, all of that, what you're going to pay for your apartment fee, which is every month. And yeah, they'll have the real estate broker, because I had people asking about recommending a broker. So like on this one here, you get all your information, the price of it, the layout, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, some other, this is 200,000 won for the apartment, for the management fee. So again, those fees will be different. A little information about the property itself, and then you get down here, you'll have the brokerage agent that holds that property. So it's a little bit different than in the United States. The United States, for realtors, you can end up getting a realtor and they can show you the entire city worth of properties. Usually in Korea, what they'll end up doing with properties is they will show you the properties that they hold so that they can get a commission. So yeah, and I've actually had people contact me that got with a realtor, and they said, yeah, we've got there's 5 properties in Brownstone that are for sale. And it's like, well, aren't there more? And they're like, no, we have 5 listings. They didn't know that at that time, there was like 70 different properties for sale at Brownstone. They just didn't want to go see them because they didn't hold the listings. So that's kind of a thing. But the contact information is always at the bottom. And then there's some additional brokerage fees on top of that. So that 200, whatever the price is, 70 million won, 260 million won, like it says here, you're going to have, let me see if we can bring this up. So you've got a brokerage fee, so it'll give up to 1.06 million, upper rate, acquisition tax, which is going to be about 3 million won, local education tax, 265,000 won, property tax, approximately 141,000 won. You're talking exchange rate is about 1450. So if you're looking at this, it's not much. Property tax, local education tax, monthly stuff. So you can kind of check out some of the particulars on that. So the 260 million won that you're going to be paying, there's also taxes and fees and other stuff. You'll find that information down at the bottom. So yeah, it definitely helps out. So yeah, some cool stuff. So our next thing is going to be checking at our Korean bank about financing to see how much, if we can get a loan. I'm pretty sure we can. But what the terms are, the interest rate, according to ChatGPT or OpenAI or Grok or whatever you use, it's between 2 and 5%, or 3 and 5%. So in my estimates, I put out about 4%, and we could finance 2 apartments, 260 million won apartments or 220 million won. We could get 2 of those, finance them for 50% each, and we'd still be making 1 million won a month. And then the return on investment was like 13.74%, which is pretty good. But we wouldn't have any in reserve. So I'm thinking we'll buy 1 and we'll test the waters and see how that works. So that's kind of our plan right now. We'll see. We'll see how that goes. Plans change. Corsair says, with Justin Chejudo last month on vacation, that's another option. Oh, yeah. Yeah, Chejudo. Except everything is shipped and because it is an island. So, Chejudo. And if we look, there's some places there. Oh, there's a bunch there. Let's check out Chejudo. Wow. 1, 2, 340 million. But we want something with pictures. Pictures. We want pictures. And again, I'm just amazed at the lack of pictures that they have on listings. Like we're going through a bunch of these, and let me show you what we're doing. So we're on Chejudo. And, oh, there's one. Finally got 33. So now we got some pictures. So 270 million won. That is a Barney Basic 3-bedroom. That's wow. Maintenance apartment fee is 120,000 won. 3-bedroom, 2-bath. And this is going to be a very Barney Basic. And there's the layout. So there's your entrance, bedroom, 1 bath, master bedroom. That's like condo plus type. That reminds me of a condo. It's like a 3-bedroom condo, which isn't bad. A little expensive. Decent bathroom, tile job, nice. It's definitely a smaller place. That's not bad. That's not too bad. But yeah, 200 million won, 270 million won, 180, 215 million won, 215 million won. Let's take a look at that. Corsair says, who needs a reserve? You're a millionaire. In won. I know. I'm a millionaire in won. So there's a picture of somebody who actually lives there. That's kind of a smaller place. Oh, that's a bedroom. Okay. Yeah. Smaller place, but it is. It's on Chejudo. So if you wanted to live on Chejudo, it is what it is. I don't know. So anyway, yeah, there it is. Naver Real Estate, naver.com, and then you can look at the real estate with the Chrome browser, and you can get the Korean to English translation. It works out pretty good, and you can check things out, and you kind of get an idea of prices. You can kind of get an idea of, read the information. Does it have above ground parking, underground parking? Are there dedicated parking spots, or is it a free-for-all? That comes into play. But Naver Real Estate is a really good tool that we found to narrow down our search when it came to shopping for real estate. Granted, we already spent a lot of time in Korea in the past, so we kind of knew where we wanted to go. We had picked out basically, I think, like 3 apartment complexes that we were interested in. But then we ended up, boom, finding such an awesome deal, a motivated seller, that we went with this place. And we're really happy with it. So, yeah. Corsair says, no one bothered to clean up before taking pics. Yeah, some people don't do that. It is what it is. And then other things that you need to be concerned about is sometimes people will take their air conditioning units with them. That's a thing in Korea that happens as well. So we just happened with our place. The air conditioner units were here. The people that owned it, the Koreans that owned it before us, had it as an investment property. So it's not like a Korean family would live here. They put in their Korean air conditioning, and then when they leave, they take their air conditioner with them, which is a thing apparently in Korea that happens. And it came with some furniture, like the thing, our TV stand that's there. Ended up there was a couch. There was the 2 queen-size bed with mattresses that were in excellent condition that still had plastic on it, matter of fact. So that was a good deal for us. And then there was something else that came with it as well. Some other furniture or whatever. Some places you'll be able to find some furniture. Other places will have zip zero none. And yeah, you might have to buy air conditioners, which would be a one-time thing if you're going to live in it. It is what it is. But if that's something that if you have the choice of buying a place that does have air conditioners versus moving into a place that doesn't, and that's the deciding factor, you can use Naver to help you out with that. So, yeah, good stuff, good stuff. And then you can also check up on places, like if we go back to Naver here, if we see up at the top, You can check for apartments, office tells. You could look for houses and villas and stuff like that. So those, uh, like a villa, ooh, 265 million. Fourth floor at a seventh floor, 3 rooms, south facing. And so, yeah, just another kind of, oh, that's not bad. Interesting. I'll have to look into villas as well. Computer game room, bedroom, blah, blah, blah. Obviously, they got some kidlings. That's not too bad either. 265 million. And a lot of Chinese have been buying up properties in Jeju-do. So, interesting. One for 240. I mean, you can get some decent prices, and then there's prices that are way beyond, way beyond our budget. So, but yeah, the neighbor real estate is a great way to pre-screen properties, whether you're looking at renting or possibly buying. You can at least take a look at the layouts of the property, get some pictures to get a general idea whether you like it or not, and that helped us in kind of pre-screening properties. Because we kind of went with a Korean realtor and said, hey, this is our budget. We want like a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. And then they took us to like some villas, smaller apartment units, with like four or 5 units or whatever. And then it's like, no, not quite so much. And we could have saved some time. We did later on because it's like, no, we don't like stuff like that. So we got on Neighbor, and then we found the apartment complexes that we're interested in and the layouts that we liked and showed our realtor. And then they're like, oh, yeah, well, we got some places, blah, blah, blah. And then, lo and behold, long story short, we're here. So, yeah, not bad, not bad. That apartment in Jeju-do, that villa, that's not bad. I wonder. That would be interesting. I'd have to check that out. So again, yeah, interesting stuff. I don't know. Maybe I'll buy a place in Jeju-do, rent that out. I don't know. It's kind of far. So anyway, that's what we got going on. A lot of stuff. So ending this episode, the best thing that you can do for me is like this video and subscribe to the channel. That would be the best thing that you could end up doing. I would really appreciate that. Corsair with a super chat. Again, thank you very much for that. You didn't have to, but I appreciate it. RIK retired in Korea. We did that. We talked about the speech ban here in Korea, propaganda leaflets, Chinese tourists, and revenge parking. And we kind of got off into some questions about being retired in Korea. With some great people, and we also shared their experiences about Japan. Lauren and CB and George and Adam, Zombie Hunter, all of that. We had some people. Ferrithus was online with us as well, and other people that are watching that didn't say anything. Thanks for watching. That helps. That helps the channel. And that's one of the things I'm doing as a retiree is just. The YouTube thing is just kind of a fun activity for me, and I like seeing other people. And Adam Bomb, I'm going to try the matcha latte. I'm going to make it a point to do that today. So we'll give it a shot. In our next stream, I'll let you know how that goes. Maybe I'll take a video of it as well and bring that on, and we'll see. So yeah, being retired overseas is fun. Anybody that has any questions, like Corsair, like I said, I mentioned my email address. And if you have any questions or you just want to say hi, you can contact me. Matter of fact, here is the obligatory outro. And you can see my email address there. Again, feel free to ask questions. Say hi, whatever it is, doesn't matter. 3D printing, retired in Korea, or just, I don't know. Picture of your cat and dog. Had somebody send me pictures of their barbecue, their smoking. Oh man, that looked really good. People over, not there, but there, bought me coffee. There's a link to buy me coffee in the description box down below. You can do that. But again, the very best thing that you could do is to like and subscribe to the channel. If the best thing that you could do is like and subscribe to the channel. Don't worry about the coffee or anything else. I can make my own coffee. But if you buy me coffee, all of that is going to go back into the channel for lights, cameras, stuff like that, 3D printing stuff, miniature supplies, whatever. It all goes back into the channel. So I appreciate that. So with that, I think we're going to close out, and I'm getting hungry, and it's like 10 o'clock in the morning, so I'm getting hangry. I'm hangry, officially hangry. So I can't talk about any other stuff because otherwise I would just get mad. So with that, again, thank you for watching, and if you subscribe, we'll see you on the next video. Peace. It's good. It is good. Good stuff. Netizen, the last final word says thanks, Steve. Well, thank you for popping in. Well, thanks to everyone for watching, and we'll see you all in the next video. Chat you down.